This sort of subtle, unspoken unease. It's hard to almost articulate. Like, how can you tell people in adverse situations to go figure it out, right? Have faith. Go pick up the pieces along the way. You don't know what they've been through. You have no idea, right? There are some people out there in immense pain and suffering. Who are you to advocate for internal strength in an unfair world? Which is basically the crux of that Instagram comment that prompted me to grab the mic and yap a little bit. And in its own unique way, I think it's correct. There's merit to that, right? There's misfortune that I just can't and don't understand. Look, I grew up and live in the West. The most difficult decision I made today was, do I make my own coffee or do I go to Starbucks? I'm just being real with you. I've always had running water. I have access to food and shelter. I grew up in a middle-class family in the suburbs of LA and then Boston. 2 parents in the home. Always had lunch in my lunchbox going to school. I'm relatively healthy, right? Minus the occasional injury or headache. I don't know what it's like to open my eyes and hope I feel well enough to function that day. That's suffering that I cannot relate to. But I know that regardless of one's pain, this has to be true, right? A choice must be made. Perhaps the most important decision one is presented with, that we are all during those times presented with. And to frame it, I'll start with a quote from Viktor Frankl. He says, to draw an analogy, a man's suffering is similar to the behavior of gas. If a certain quantity of gas is pumped into an empty chamber, it will fill the chamber completely and evenly, no matter how big the chamber. Thus, suffering completely fills the human soul and conscious mind, no matter whether the suffering is great or little. Therefore, the size of human suffering is absolutely relative. What he's saying there is that even though our suffering is not quote unquote equal, and it's certainly not, in our own lives, in our own world, it feels the same, right? Which is a strange thing to even entertain, right? That my suffering or your suffering feels the same as Jeff Bezos' suffering. It's like, how, right? They're vastly different problems, different pains. So I think, long story short, comparing is a fool's errand. We're not here to be judges of who's hurting more or why. No, I think the message is much simpler. When we're in those moments of pain, or look, maybe it's not even moments, maybe it's a continuation, right? For years, someone's been fighting or weren't given a great start. They don't have financial resources, family, friends not around, sick, you name it, right? There are a million things we go through. Question is, do you point out with anger, or do you point in with hope? Do you look to transfer your pain to others, or use your internal strength to build what was once not there? And this is the message, by the way, that I've pondered and contemplated over and over and over again. It doesn't matter how I slice it and dice it, that's where I land, right? It's never beneficial to blame. Just like it's always detrimental when others clap along with you like baby seals while you're dodging accountability. It never helps for someone to say, hey, this isn't your problem. This is beyond you. You're helpless. Let's be mad together. Hey, we weren't dealt a good hand. I'm sorry. That's the way it is. Right? That in the short term might feel good, because you don't have to fix the problem. You can remove accountability. But in the long term, you are hurting yourself. You are disempowering yourself, disarming yourself. Removing the one thing that can change your life, and that's personal agency. Again, when you're at that rock bottom, you have two options: own it or blame, period. And you can hear that and think, what? It's not my fault he walked out of my life. Hey, I certainly didn't give myself this health problem. Hey, I didn't pick to be born or grow up in this neighborhood. True, check. This is not about blame, and it has nothing to do with blame. It has everything to do with ownership, with empowering yourself. This is about saying, I didn't put myself here, but I sure as hell can take myself there. Not enough people are comfortable with that message, right? From every corner of life, you get the opposite, right? You have politicians saying, hey, son, the deck is stacked against you. You're powerless, but hey, vote for me and I'll help. You have, the media, you have TV showing you tragedy after tragedy, pointing fingers, blaming others, right? Let's make sure people live in fear so they have no control over their own destinations, so they feel small and helpless in a world that's bigger than them. You have social media algorithms, right? Positioning victimhood as currency. Hey, look how marginalized I am. Poor me, right, guys? Clicks, retweets, likes. That's the magic. This way of looking at the world is destroying us. It's destroying us personally. It's destroying our communities. It's destroying the fabric of society, right? You can't have a functioning society with no personal agency or individual accountability. There's just no foundation to build on. Everything starts with the individual. Everything. As the saying goes, no one is coming to save you. No one's coming to fix all your problems, even the ones you didn't create. No one's going to fix a cycle of poverty or crime or obesity. You have to want that. Now, is that complex? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not delusional enough to think that I can solve these things on a microphone. I'm not. But what I can tell you is I see its complexity the same way I see a car is complex. I can't put a car together. There's thousands of parts. But I can tell you with conviction that car is not going anywhere without the engine or motor. Just like your willingness to own the situation, your personal situation, your agency is the engine or motor in your life. You go nowhere without it. There is no vehicle without that ownership. In other words, everything revolves around that phrase, what can I personally do about it? So when you're frustrated with the current moment or the pieces you were given, and trust me, I can empathize, man. Life is unfair. It's brutally unfair. Remember those two options. Point out, blame, and beg to be saved. Or you can point in and find a way to capture light in darkness. Anytime you want to transfer accountability, you are a thief robbing yourself of your own strength. Anytime someone tells you that the world is the problem and not you, they are a distraction pointing you away from the North Star you need to follow. If you believe the answer is within an arm's reach, you are correct. because you are that answer. No, I'm not sorry. Sure, I was ignorant back then. No question. But ignorance is not a crime. Ignorance is the foundation that we build upon. You can't be sorry for not knowing. You shouldn't be sorry for not knowing. The only real tragedy is to plant a stake in the ground and call the ignorance home. And no, I'm not sorry that I found myself in places I didn't want to be, doing things that weren't me, talking every day with people who didn't fill my cup or push me forward. But it's not the end of the world when we find ourselves walking down the wrong paths with the wrong people. It's just an invitation to step off and find the right one. In fact, the only real wrong path is the one you continue walking down knowing that it's not for you. And no, I'm not sorry. I was half the person I am now. Half as capable, half as knowledgeable, half as driven. But it's not a bad thing to look around and realize that you can be more. It's not a problem to see the reality you're living and deem it beneath your ideals. That's a beautiful thing. What would be a shame is to never open your eyes and see the possibility. To see now as a permanent fixture, not something you can control, but something you're confined to. That would be a shame. Never be sorry for where you came from. Never be sorry for what you went through. Never be sorry for the hell you're walking through now. And most importantly, never feel sorry for yourself, right? These so-called inconveniences are the bridge to something better. They are the reason you will evolve and grow and expand. Don't be sorry. Be grateful. Be ready for the second act. Excited about what will become of you. See, often we have to find ourselves in the lowest of low places before we learn to ask if there's a better view out there for us. That's just the reality. Sometimes life is about touching the hot stove before learning to avoid it. You're never dumb or less than for finding yourself looking up at an ideal. For saying, hey, there's a delta between where I am and where I want to be, and I can obtain that. You know what one of my greatest strengths has become? It's not earlier mornings or quadruple efficiency, not a biohack or a evolved daily routine. It's learning to be kind to myself. And if that seems fluffy or unimportant, I want you to picture someone never running to, but always running from. Always motivated by fear. Endless examples. A mere jog on a summer afternoon was never fast enough. Other content creators, authors, writers, speakers were always better, always further along. Imaginary competition always seemed to move faster, where they were always doing more. I used to call this perpetual state of lack a chip on my shoulder. This is what kept me going, the giant shadow of failure. I can't fail, I can't fail, I can't fail, I won't fail, not me. So I'll do more and I'll push harder. And I'm not sorry about that. In fact, it was probably what I needed for that season of my life. It hardened me up, made me tougher. And I think most importantly brought me to where I am today. A sort of inverse position, learning to be just as motivated from a place of abundance. You can run just as ferociously towards something as you can from something. And guess what? When you reach the finish lines, you actually appreciate them. Running not away from what I'm fearful of, but towards what lights me up. True story. Every time my YouTube channel hit some sort of subscriber milestone, for years, I'd get a note from a good friend of mine, Dave, who'd say, hey, congrats. Don't forget to celebrate the accomplishment. Every time. And I'd be, grateful for the message. But celebrate? That part I'd kind of overlook. That's nice, I'd think. But when I started to really understand the importance of that message, I started to see things differently. You have to celebrate. You celebrate because now is the magic. If you can't appreciate now, you will appreciate nothing. Doesn't mean stop, doesn't mean go easier or minimize the destination. It means remember to love the ride because you are, as the saying goes, in the midst of the good old days. Don't wait to be 90 years old to appreciate them. And I'm not, again, sorry that it took me so long to get there. Perhaps that's why I've learned to appreciate this point of view so much. I've seen the inverse. I'm not sorry I spent so much time running away from what I fear and don't want. No, I'm grateful that now I've learned to live in abundance, to run towards what lights me up. Really focusing on each step, finding gratitude in all of it. And of course, it's not always easy, right? There are days where I have to really work to see the value, but when I try, which is the point, I eventually find it. I learned this by stumbling into it. And so in your world, I have a request. Maybe you can frame it as an experiment. What if you completely cut all the sorry stuff? Stopped being sorry for your mistakes. Stop being sorry for the things you aren't happy about or the cosmic injustices you feel have occurred. And what if you started being grateful for the realization that you can change them? You started being appreciative of the fact that you're on your way to something better. Maybe in your context, running from and running to are different. But I'd be willing to bet there's a rearranging that can transform life as you currently know it. And who would have thought, that rearranging is what we come to value most. So don't be sorry about what's occurred or where you are. Be excited. Be grateful. Because life is about to begin.
Hello everyone that's in the room, it's time to rock and roll.
Scott?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, let me just get sorted.
No, sorry.
Yep. Yeah, just give me literally 2 seconds. I just want to get everything sorted. I think we're good. I'll do everything up. Yeah, I can help.
No, I just want to check. The mastermind, can you join anytime? Or is it a certain seasonal?
No, it's anytime.
Anytime?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a journey, not a course.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, not a course.
Okay.
So we specifically designed it like that because if we start and then it doesn't work. So
Okay. Oh, it's a journey.
and of course everyone goes at their own space as well.
Yes.
Some people go faster than
All
others.
right.
So.
Yes. All right. No, that's okay.
And I'll give you a date for your weekends for next year already.
I don't know what I'm doing next weekend. No. With all due respect, it's a great question. One of the reasons that I left Roger had nothing to do with Roger. It actually had to do with their disorganization. And when I was paying $25,000 a month, and I'm not talking behind his back because I told him this, and it kept changing every month. It drove me flipping crazy. You know, like when I'm paying the money and I'm stuck on an aeroplane. So what we do, if I just show you here, that's part of the mastermind. If you go here, by the way, the current mastermind members don't know this, because we're literally launching this on Wednesday. But if you go here, we've got, within our mastermind platform, we've got our calendar, so there's this month. If you go next month, it's there, and you can go all the way through to 2025, December 2025. So I'm exactly the same as you. I plan my entire year out, and then we'll, before December, we will have the Wealth Weekends planned. Everything will be in here.
Because I can travel whenever I want, but I can...
No, I'm the same. I'm the same. I can plan my life around it, but I need the big rocks. So that's exactly the same. So by, like, to be honest, I just need Garth and there's like time availability. But last year we actually had it finalized by December for 2024. We'll do exactly the same thing for 2025.
I don't need to know where, I just need to know.
Yeah, right. Well, you might need to know where because.
South Africa is a good thing.
Yeah, well, to be fair, so we're going to. It's a conversation I still need to have with Garth, but we definitely, half the mastermind members are not South African. So we've got American, we've got Australian, we've got New Zealand, we've got Italy, Spain, Portugal. We had a German person, but they passed away, unfortunately. Anyway, you get my point. So to balance things, we are seriously considering doing something in Europe next year as well. So we'll definitely obviously do one in South Africa, but whether we'll do 2 in South Africa and one here and one in Europe, I need to finalize with them. Okay, cool. Is everyone ready to rock and roll? Is everyone online? You guys ready to rock and roll as well? Okay, so what is day 2 all about? We're just starting now. The one thing I love is getting feedback, because you can only ever get better if you get feedback. And so we sat last night. I was like, right, let's make this more interactive. Cool, let's start with that. You know what I mean? So I rock and roll with kind of A, feedback, but B, how we go with the flow. So I literally sat there most of that last session just going, wow, like, I don't think everyone truly understands how valuable that can be, and so I'm deeply, deeply grateful for what just happened. But what we do need to do is module 4, which is all about risk, and in simple terms, it's all around partnership, which is actually why that worked so well with the timing. And then we're going to pivot off. So after lunch, we'll go into putting into practice and actually walking away with a plan. And then after that, we're going to go and have some fun. And all of you should have the link in terms of where we're going. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere around here.
It's just down.
Is it just down the street? I'm not from here, so I'm going to assume that it's a nice place. Okay, so what is risk module 4 all about? It's risk management. And we can go into all the details around risk management. For me personally, the single biggest thing I've learned around risk management is partners. Because you've got 2 options in life. You can learn everything and try and do it all on your own. Abdul literally said it on stage half an hour ago. Or you can find partners. But you do have to assess that those partners know what they're doing. Does that make sense?
I was just about to say the right part.
Yeah, the right partners. Yeah. Well, that's why I say the right information, the right partners. It's really important to have the right partners. So this whole session is how do we choose the right partners? Does that make sense? In terms of where we're at. Okay, so I probably don't need to say this, but again, for those mainly online, be present and play full on in terms of the process. I do remind you that all of this is in the resources guide, which you should all have access to. You can join the community and communicate with us. It was a homework competition, just as a matter just for those in the room. Who did their homework?
I read it this morning.
I read it.
Looked into it.
I did check, for the record, 3 a.m. this morning, I checked who had done their homework. And so we've got a prize for the homework person. Who do you think it is? There's only 2 of you in the room. And the prize goes to Sinet. So congratulations, Sinet. And what you're getting is the metaphor that I like to give people is Sinet is already a wealth hacker. So she's already on the aeroplane. We're already flying from Johannesburg to London.
Yes.
But I'm the good-looking air hostess who's come up and gone, Sinet, would you like to come up to first class? We've got a seat for you. And she's going to get to join us on next Wednesday at our mastermind session. Just to be clear, she's not joining the mastermind, but she's joining our that month session so that she can experience everything. So she'll be able to feed back what's happening with Donald Trump and whether that's good or bad for the world economy. So anyway, you've been upgraded to VIP for a month, so enjoy it. So anyway, that's what happens to people who do their homework. The rest of you, enjoy economy class. Anyway, so focus, globally diversified passive income. Let's just get rid of that thing. And portfolio growth. And again, how do we do it? You know, we've got the formula there in terms of diversifying across countries, currencies, assets, partners, and time. And then what do we do? This was the triangle that I was talking about when Judy was talking about a vision board. You get very clear on the goal, you break it down into sub-goals, and then you have tasks and activities. So, just to remind you that last night you were given some steps in terms of researching and identifying 3 different markets, creating a hypothetical diversified investment portfolio, considering the diversification mastermind, and sharing one key takeaway. And I did say to you, you've got 2 options. You can go and do it all on your own, or you can partner. Remember I said that?
Yes.
So that's why we're now pivoting into partnership, or you can do it on your own, you can choose. And the second one was the gold, which was even more in depth, research the asset class and their historical performance, and research and compare the different investment vehicles. Okay, in terms of next steps, I do remind the people in the room, if you do want to chat, you know, go and sit down, chat with Alex, find a time. If you don't have time today, make sure you book a time, you know, in terms of next steps, if you want to talk to a human, okay? So, and for those online, we've got our little tool to help you with that. Okay, do you remember the 2 options I gave you at Christmas? One is I don't have time, I don't have money, and I don't have knowledge. And the other one, oh sorry, I love that picture. And the other option is get what you want, get the knowledge, and get the time you want, and going to Christmas with kind of the peace of mind. So I am doing this on purpose, and I'm going to keep doing it, because for me, this is that metaphor of heaven and hell. It's like, you know, and which one do you want in terms of that process? I've explained to you the passive income challenge. I just wanted to share this with you. Judy spoke about community. I only know community. So this here, just some fun pictures. This was me when we launched the company in 2004. This is me in London in Putney, presenting my very first presentation. There were 120 people in the room, and I was teaching them how to buy property in South Africa and in London. That's Chaz Everett, if you know the estate agency. Chaz Everett, he was one of my speakers. That's Baldwin. I'm sure most of you know Baldwin, the biggest developer. We sold all their developments in London. That's Ian Fife, who was the editor of the Financial Mail. That's Andy McPherson, who is managing partner of the biggest conveyancer, Buchanan Boys. They're now STBB, Buchanan Boys. That's Dr. Hannes Dreyer presenting in London. I think you get the point. This is launching London. This is launching Australia. It then turned into buyers trips. And these are just multiple pictures of groups that we took overseas to go and do physical buyers trips on the ground. And then it turned into wealth weekends, which is where we go away and just had fun. And, you know, yeah. And as I've already shared with you, this is what we did literally this year in terms of this process. So for me, when people say to me, you know, what is the Wealth Hackers? For those that can't and aren't necessarily ready yet for the mastermind, the Wealth Hackers been literally designed to be that Netflix in terms of knowledge and also community, but an online digital community. And, you know, again, I'm not going to spend too much time going through all the value again, but there's a hell of a lot of value. What did we decide last night? 6 years worth of 6 years worth of value for literally what people have already paid in terms of doing these courses and in terms of the process. And then what we've literally done in the last week, I mean, that was what it used to cost people, $2,500. And then in the last week, we went and added all of the different courses. So, I mean, you can literally get it for $37 a month. And we put all of the courses in. So everything from, and if I just show you here, Wealth Going Global, Asset Mastery, Clem Sunter, the Q&A, the 6 Pillars to Wealth, the Enneagram and Wealth, how to teach your children money, generational wealth. We were talking yesterday, a question, how do I get tax and structuring? It's literally in there already in terms of that process, the entire wealth weekend and exclusive access to the community. So if you put it all together, it's literally $60,000. And for us, our whole logic was, how can we democratize it? Does that make sense? So, and I'll be clear with you, I think hopefully you've understood how my brain operates. Like people go, well, it sounds too good to be true. Why would you give it away for $37? It's very simple for me. Netflix doesn't make sense for Netflix with one customer at $10 a month. But it makes sense when they've got 10 million or however many they got. We want to empower people. So using the technology, it's completely scalable. So I'm not interested in getting 10 people at $37 a month. I'm interested in getting 10,000. Makes sense? Okay. So not only do I want you to participate, but I want you to go and help your friends participate. And if you're interested in becoming an affiliate and a partner, that's also an option in terms of how we do that. Okay, so that's the link if people want to sign up and join the Wealth Hackers in terms of that process. And something I didn't mention yesterday, which is really important. Does anyone know what the concept of grandfathering is? What's the concept of grandfathering?
When you learn something, you stay on that grade forever.
Exactly. So I learned this a long time ago, where you pay a price, like it's a monthly price, but you agree, you start at like, let's say $10, and then the price stays at $10. Even when the price gets to $100 a month, it doesn't matter, you stay at $10. So we've got the exact same concept. So there's people that joined the Wealth Hackers at $18. There's people that joined at $27. There's people at 32, there's people at 35, and now it's 37. Every time we add value, we're going to keep bumping it up. So, and 10 years from now, even if it's costing $500 a month, you'll still be paying $37 a month. Does it make sense? So we value people that want to participate early in terms of that process. So, yeah, back to what Judy said, time value of money. And again, you can go and look at what everyone said about it. I'm not going to go into that detail. Okay, so, and then lastly, I will answer questions like right at the end of today. Let's finish off, and then if anyone has any questions about anything, I'll answer them. In terms of someone asking me about the mastermind earlier, I'm happy to answer that. I do think, hopefully you're starting to see now, it's a huge amount of information, I understand that, but you're starting to see now how the different pictures come together and how they're important. Like all of these, so it's 9 steps, but can you start to see how they're all important and they weave together? Yes? Okay. So, and then the learning platform and the environment and the bonuses, etc. And if people want to participate, if you're in the room, just come chat to us. If you're online, you must go to the link. Okay, who's ready for day 2 at lunchtime? So I need to say this always, this is not financial advice, but specifically when it comes to partners, I want to share with you how I lost $20 million, not only my own money, I lost over $1 million myself, but with our other investors, we've lost over $20 million through making the wrong mistakes with partners. And what I'm sure you'd like to learn is what we learned from it and how we can avoid it. Is that fair? So you can either do it yourself and lose $20 million, or you can listen. But you know what I'm trying to share is not financial advice. I'm just literally trying to share our own learnings, lessons, and everything in between. And that's why I honestly believe it's about risk management. So that's what we're looking at in terms of diversification. But if you look here, what we're focusing on is number 4. Because the mistake most people make is they say, well, okay, Scott, I'm going to go and diversify, and then they go to London and they have one partner. Or that guy that I told you that went to America and had one medical partner, and they had 9 investments with a medical partner, and then that didn't work. And I'm like, well, you didn't really diversify, did you? Does it make sense? And just in case you're thinking it, I'm going to solve it for you right now. Wealth Migrate is not one partner. We're facilitating you invest with lots of partners. Does that make sense? So you're not investing one deal with Wealth Migrate, you're investing with multiple partners. So even if Wealth Migrate falls over, you're still investing directly with the partner. It's just really important to understand that. Like, so, because people sometimes join those dots and they go, but then I'm just doing all my investments with you. No, you're not. It's like an Uber driver. We're Uber, and we're helping you go with multiple drivers. Just to use the analogy. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and again, just if you want to go deeper, within the Wealth Hackers, you can literally go, there's an entire module just on partners. Okay, so I'm going to give you the top of the iceberg, the important parts, but you know, if you want substance, then it's there. So what is partners? It's all about the power of partnership and investing globally with confidence. We help investors be confident in their ability to choose the right partners. So this is all about partners and due diligence. And there are, in the resources, there are guides that we literally give you. So we've got cheat sheets that you can go and read. Okay, so it's a bit like wherever my book's gone. When I wrote this book, the whole idea was give people things that they want. So even if you never want to work with us, I don't care. Still read it. And when you talk to your next partner, ask them these questions. Does that make sense? You know, because we're empowering you to make the right decisions. Okay, so the 4 golden rule. This is time for a course of life. 4 golden rules of partners. Okay, so this is the most valuable session I can share with you. Literally this session, because I've done this 28 years. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've seen a lot of other people make mistakes. And what I'm literally going to share with you is the most important principles I've learned on how to not make mistakes when it comes to partners. So the first one is that they need to have a 10-year plus track record. Let me explain that a little bit. People come all the time and they're really excited, but the economic cycles go in 8 to 10-year cycles. Roughly, they have done for hundreds of years and they will continue to do that. It's very easy. There's 2 beautiful sayings that I've heard that I hope you share elsewhere because I think they're hilarious. Even a turkey can fly in a hurricane. So that's the one I love. And the other one I love is when the tide goes out, we find out who's got their pants down. And both of those metaphors mean that when the market's rising, everyone looks clever. Does that make sense? So when I say 10 years plus, I'm not interested in how well you did when the market was working. I'm interested in what you did when the market wasn't working. Are you with me? I believe very strongly in one principle as well. Your character is not determined by how you behave when it's working. Your character is determined by how you behave when it's not working. And I've dealt with enough property people that when the you-know-what's hitting the fan, they bury their head in the sand like an ostrich and hope it goes away. And I'm stuck there with investors screaming at me. I'm not interested. I want to know what you did during the last crash or whatever. We just had another one in the last year with a massive rising in interest rates, specifically in America. How did you deal with that? I want to know you came through that because there will be problems going forward. Just make sure you wrote that down on record. I mean that. If you think this is going to be hassle-free and problem-free and whatever, it doesn't exist, okay? There will be some problems. I'm not saying all problems, but there will be some. It's just the way investing works. I guarantee you Abdul has never got it right his whole career. Like, it just does not work like that. Like, you know what I mean? And so my question is, how did they behave when it's not working? And that's what we're trying to find out. Does that make sense? And if they haven't done it 10 years, they haven't gone through a cycle. The second question is specific market knowledge. So often younger people, but you still meet people all the time, they're experts in everything. They do industrial buildings, they do a bit of private equity, they do crypto, they do medical centers on the side, and they're looking at aged care, and next year they're going to do data centers. Not interested. What do you do, and have you done it for 10 or 20 years? Simple. I mean, just to use the analogy here, if I was going to go farming, I'd partner with Derek. I wouldn't partner with Abdul. Serious, like just, whatever. But equally, if I was going to open a business, I'd partner with Abdul. I wouldn't partner with Derek. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at? Okay. Same metaphor. Like, if someone knows everything, they know nothing. Okay, so that's very important for us. The third one is put their own money in the deal. This is the most important one. So South Africans are famous. There's actually a saying in Australia, how do you become a millionaire in Australia? An Australian dollar millionaire. How do you become an Australian dollar millionaire in Australia? Anyone? Arrived from South Africa or Zimbabwe with $5 million. They literally see you coming. And then what they do is they put you in deals, they put no money in, and one day when they make all this money, they get 50% of the upside. But if they mess it up, you take all the risk and lose all the money. Okay, so the single most important principle I've learned is your money in the deal? And is it the same share class and whatever as my money? Because that's the other lesson I learned the hard way. I asked someone, I was like, is your money in the deal? Yes. Oh, great. Then the shit hit the fan. Oh, wait, yours has priority over mine. Whoa, I didn't see that clause. So that's a very simple thing. Is your money in the deal, and is it exactly the same as my money? Is our money treated the same way? And if you have that, when that boat goes into a storm, we're both tied to that same mast. There's no one getting on the life raft and running away. I'm sorry, this is some of the most valuable stuff I can share with you, okay? Number 4, 80% of the equity. This is a new one, by the way. So I wasn't saying this 5 years ago. 80% of the equity is coming from local investors. So I had a meeting yesterday afternoon, literally in that boardroom, right there at lunchtime. And it was so funny because it's literally what I'm going to share with you for the next 2 hours, is that my previous partners had this belief system that from Pretoria, we could do everything. We could control everything. We could go all over the world and we could invest. And it just didn't sit well for me because it was like, how can we invest in America when we live in Pretoria? Like, it doesn't make sense to me, okay? And I'm going to go into this in a lot more detail just now. But in simple terms, if you do not have local investors, there is a problem. And I'll explain to you a real life story of when I first learned this. So we were looking at a shopping center in Brisbane. It was Investec Bank was owed 27.28, don't hold me exactly to the number, $27.28 million. That's what Investec was owed. And we could buy this building for $18 million. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Well, we flew to Brisbane 3 times to look at it. We came very close to buying that building. And the reason we didn't buy the building, I can't even remember, okay? But we didn't buy the building. A year later, I met this really wealthy Australian investor, and I was telling him about the shopping center, and he said to me, really? We turned that thing down a year before you even saw it. And what I realized in that moment, and I'm sorry ladies, this is the one moment you're not going to like me, but there is an old boys club.
How is it?
And we're not in the old boys club. And if you go to Australia, it's even, I mean, America's a much bigger place, but Australia's a really small place, okay? And so if there's a good deal, and Derek and me and Abdul are in the old boys club, we farm it around amongst each other. Abdul, I'm selling these buildings, you want it? Yeah, no, I want it, thanks, cool. No one knows about it, it's just off market, it's done, you know, all of that stuff, okay? If the little old boys club doesn't work, then it goes to the estate agents and the brokers and the CBREs and all of them, okay? And they then go to the Australian investors and they say, do you guys want to invest in this deal? And, you know, most often if it's a good deal, then it gets picked up by the Australian investors. And if that doesn't work, what do they do next? They get on an airplane, they fly to Johannesburg and they go, Abdul, you live in Cape Town, don't you want to invest in Brisbane? We've got this great deal. What's really important here is no Australians wanted the deal. And I wish I'd learned this 20 years ago, with all due respect. If there's not 80% of local investors, I don't want it. I was given a deal recently, 3 months ago in London. It looked beautiful on paper, quite frankly. I did quite a lot of due diligence on it. I was like, I know the guy, in fact, he's a shareholder in our company. I was like, so I trust the guy, I've worked with him for a long time, I know him quite well actually. I said, yes, this is a really good deal. I said, just in my interest, how much investment are you getting from local investors? None. We're going to get all from Migrate. Cool, thanks for playing. Literally, straight up. And I'm going to explain to you why. So those 4 things, literally, is probably the most priceless information I can give you over the last 2 days. Because whether you want to invest with us or not, I don't care. But that will save you a lot of money. How do we do it? And again, I can go into a lot of detail if you're interested. But again, most people think in their minds, if you're getting a good deal, what do you think generally? I must do the due diligence on the deal. Yes or no? I mean, that's common sense, isn't it? We don't even think like that. We start with a partner. So if you look here, and if I show you, we go out and we sponsor the partner first. So this is, in America they call it a sponsor. We call it a partner, call it a sponsor, whatever. But we basically do due diligence on the partner first. And by the way, and it's one of the reasons I'm hesitant with data centers, it's been many, many years since I went on LinkedIn and tried to find a partner. Every single partner comes through relationships, which is why I'm struggling in data centers, because people are sending me LinkedIn profiles, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't know them from a bar of soap. Like, no one can tell me anything about them. And then we kind of go through this process. Once they've passed the test, then you start looking at the deal. Once the deal's gone through the test, then it goes live on the platform. Then you raise the capital on the marketplace. You close the deal. You set up the structure. You implement the investment. If there's quarterly or monthly distributions, they get paid. You track the deal. You exit the deal. The capital gain is unlocked. You return the capital, and then people have their money for investment again. Does that make sense? So myth number 8, quickly before I go any further, was if you've heard of the rule of 10,000 hours, anything you do in life is going to take you 10,000 hours to master. It's a great rule. And for me, what I always find interesting, and I respect what Abdul said on stage here, is that I don't care if you've got 30 years or 40 years or 50 years of experience doing commercial property in South Africa. If you suddenly go and try and do a deal in Atlanta, you've got more experience than someone who's got naught experience in South Africa, but you are not arriving with 10,000 hours. Does that make sense? And my attitude with this stuff, and I'm gonna play a video for you which emphasizes this. I honestly don't believe you can succeed by trying to do it on your own. I really, like, from everything I've learned in the last 28 years. So, I've spoken a bit about the book and where it came from. And Clem Santa, again, this came out in 2013. And in simple terms, when I wrote the book, it's all about residential property. But over the last 10 years, we evolved in 2014, like I told you, into commercial property. And in 2019, through Chad Pope, we got into other alternative assets. And over those time, we built out basically GIDS, our Global Investment Due Diligence System. And if you look at it, and again, I can go into all this detail, and I'm not going to, because you've got access to it if you want to go to Wealth Going Global, which is what Abdul mentioned, where I literally spend like 2.5 hours going into this system, how it works, etc. So I just wanted to show you the high level. I'm not giving you the detail, but in simple terms, like, you've got to look at the countries. I've explained to you yesterday how to do that. You've got to look at the currencies. I explained to you yesterday how to do that. You've got to start looking at the cities. Again, America, the 300 cities. Do you invest in Atlanta or do you invest in California or Los Angeles? You've got to start looking at the deals. You've got to find the partners. You've got to set up the structure. You've got to do due diligence. Then you've got to maximize the investment. Again, any property person would know what I'm talking about here. Most people think they make money when they buy property, and I know there's the saying, you make money when you buy property. From my experience, it's not the truth, particularly in commercial. You make money by managing the investment well. I'm sure, Abdul, and the only reason I'm picking on you, Abdul, is you're the only commercial person. I don't know if anyone else does commercial, but I know that you and I have done a lot of commercial. You make money in commercial by increasing the income. And the only way to increase the income is to manage the asset well. Does that make sense? Are you in agreement? Disagree with me if you disagree with me. Yeah. So for me, what's really important here, it's all good and well to do due diligence, but you've got to make sure that there's a way to manage the asset to get a good income. Does that make sense? And then finally, obviously, we've got the digital wallets to earn it, and then the customer experience. So they're the 10 layers for us. Then, if you want to go read all about it, we've got GIDS 1.0 and we've got GIDS 2.0. GIDS 1.0 is all about how to do it from a residential perspective. GIDS 2.0 is all how to do it from a commercial perspective. In commercial, we've got a 143-point checklist. That's, again, if you do the course, it's all there. In terms of, in fact, I'll show you quickly just so you can see it. So if I go in here to the classroom and I go to Wealth Going Global and I go to partners and the power of partnership, you can see there that they're all the cheat sheets and there the different systems are literally like GIDS 1, GIDS 2 and the Master Due Diligence checklist. It's all there. Okay, I've actually had this all the time. People are like, Scott, why do you give away all your secret sauce? Like, people just copy it. I'm like, go for it. Seriously, fly to America, good luck. I know that sounds arrogant, but honestly, it's not about having a spreadsheet. I can promise you that much. How do we do it? So this is not our way. This is the worldwide way of doing it. When they classify a sponsor, they talk about them being tenured. And again, sorry, I'm not trying to teach you institutional language. Does that make sense? So if you're sitting in a fund, when Derek's sitting there in that fund conversation, this is the language they talk. So is the partner tenured, established, developing, or emerging? And in simple terms, what it means is how much management experience do they have? How long has the company been going? And how many assets under management do they have? Does that make sense? Okay. And obviously, arguably, a tenured would be less risky than an emerging. Now, why do we still have an emerging? Because we do have emerging. I got no problem, like Judd is a good example of emerging. I've got no problem investing with Judd, where he's been doing this for 20 years, but he was doing it as a corporate employee. I mean, Jeanette, you would remind me of Judd, okay? Where you've got tremendous experience doing this at a corporate level, but now you decided to go on your own. He's only been doing it for 3 years, and he's got sort of less than 200 million, but he really knows what he's doing. He's done over $1 billion, in facilitator. I'm very happy doing business with him, but he would still be an emerging. Are you with me in terms of understanding? Okay, so just to give you an example of a few of them, this is Feldman. They are tenured as an example. So you can see up here, They've got $100 million invested just with their own family money. They've got 100 years of experience. They've been in business 43 years. They've done 7 recessions, and they've got $3 billion under management. Just give you an example. We've done 2 deals with these guys. That's the first building we did with them, right in the heart of COVID. Everyone told me that you shouldn't do office in the middle of COVID. We did that in, it's not on yet, but anyway, it's December 2020. Just by the way, did you ever think, I had never thought, that I would own a building like that? I mean, honestly, did you ever think you would own a building like that? No. I didn't either. I only own the doorknob, but don't tell anyone. But what's more interesting is look at this. So if I show you that building, and we go to deals. Sorry, I've got one screen here. Come on. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. I was going to make sure I get the right one. Oh no, it's this one. Sorry, the internet's not usually fast today. I don't know what's going on. So you can see that I'm doing this real time for you because it's sending me an authentication code. 848813. Okay, so I'm logging into that building. Well, I'm logging into Feltman basically in terms of their back-end platform. And I just wanted to show you that specific building and distributions. So there it is. You can see there October, July, April, Jan, October, July, June. I don't know why we got a special distribution there. We just kind of paid us more money. But basically you can go back. We haven't missed a single quarter since COVID. So what I find fascinating is like people like don't invest in office. I'm like, okay, well maybe just with the right people in the right area it can actually work. Anyway, so that's just an example. I love doing this, and sorry, I'm being really rude and facetious here. But you know, this is such a boring investment because I've never been phoned once to fix the roof, to change a tenant, to paint the walls. It's terrible. I literally put my money in and I have to do nothing, and they pay me. Horrendous. Horrendous. I much prefer running around and fixing tenant problems.
No.
Okay, Mag.
agree with that.
Mag. So these guys, you can see there, sorry, I must do it this way around. 43 properties, 300 million under management, 18.8% average IRR, 9% cash on cash. So they are what's deemed a tenured as well. You can see they're tenured. So they do industrial. So again, I honestly, when I was a kid, as much as I love Monopoly, didn't think I'd be investing in industrial logistics buildings like this. So I mean, we've done 2 deals with these guys, and if I log in here, I'd like to show you real facts if you're interested. So these are 2 deals that we did with them, and if I go to my transactions, they actually pay monthly. So that's October, September, August. What month's that? July, June, May, April, March. Again, sort of $4,000 in total, 2, 2.5, and 1.5. It's so boring. This is a structured note. Derek referred to the structured note. I don't have a back-end system to show you structured notes, but remember we spoke yesterday about structured notes. So we've actually got 4 structured notes. 3 of them are working, 1 of them is not. And the reason being the PayPal price dropped, and they're waiting for the PayPal price to recover. So we haven't lost any money, but we're not getting our income. Exactly why diversification is so important, because no deal is guaranteed. But I mean, someone was asking, I think that was a gentleman, Ollie, but he's not here. But I mean, you're dealing with some of the biggest banks in the world. That's BNP Paribas, as an example. So again, tenured. And then just as an example on an emerging, I kind of already alluded to this, but this is Judd, and this is the building we did, I can't remember now, 2022 I think it was. And again, they pay monthly, about an 8% return. We haven't missed a month yet in terms of that process. Okay, so myth 9 is that I can fly to America and I can do deals myself. I'll be frank with you, I don't care if you've got $100 million, you won't get access to deals that the people that are on the ground, that are part of the networks, are getting access to. It's just a fact. Literally, like, and so you got two choices. You can either compete with them or you can partner with them. Does that make sense? And I'm sorry, I'm very consciously, you might, if you haven't picked it up, there's 10 myths, and I've been going through all the myths over the last 2 days. Because these are all the things people tell themselves. I've got lots of money, I'll fly to America and do it all myself. Good luck with that. It just doesn't work, I promise you. I've seen it for 28 years. So, if you want to do it on your own, then I'd recommend you do everything below the iceberg there. Lawyers, brokers, tax, investment, client services, banks, due diligence, investor KYC, SPV, etc., etc. Or you could go to Wealth Migrate and you do 4 simple things: sign up, set up your platform, browse and invest, and earn an income. That in simple terms, that's what we've done in terms of that process. How does it work? Most people want to know what's going to happen to their money. So you're sitting here, this is you, Jill or Joe Soap, and you've got an account, your own personal bank account. You set up an investor wallet. So this is Jill's wallet, this is Joe's wallet, this is Pete's wallet, and this is Seapor's wallet. Every one of you have your own personal wallet. By the way, you can do this in your own name, you can do it in a company, you can do it in a trust. You send your money to your own personal wallet. You're in control of your wallet, you're in control of your money. I do not touch your money. Then, you got a digital marketplace. So, that is Wealth Migrate as an example. Can anyone tell me, I don't want to confuse you, but can anyone tell me why I write digital marketplace and not Wealth Migrate? What just happened before tea?
You're not investing with
Just before tea, we now have business owners, we have farmers, and we have women. So we've got different marketplaces, but at the end of the day, it's still a marketplace. Then an opportunity comes along, and it's an investment opportunity. Let's just say it's an industrial building in Phoenix. It gets put on the marketplace. Okay? Whichever marketplace you are on.
And so you're the people that go and do all the background and then you load it onto the
The
platform.
due diligence, yes, yeah. We then aggregate the investors. So if you invest $100,000 and then you invest $10, it doesn't matter. Everyone gets aggregated together, and it goes through a structure. So it's a tax efficient structure. So if you invest in America, just to give you an example. If you invest in America and you do it the wrong way, it's 30% withholding tax. So if you make $100, you lose $30. Boom. If you do it through a tax, I'm not saying tax evasion, I'm saying tax efficient structure, you only pay $10. It's just stupid not to do it the right way. You then buy the asset, so you own the asset, and when the asset pays you an income, the income comes out and it goes into a digital wallet, which is the deal wallet, and then it gets distributed into your personal wallet. Now, just to use my same analogy, you've put in $100,000 and you've put in $10. If the return is 10%, let's just keep it simple. You're going to get $10,000 and you're going to get $1. You're still getting 10%, but you're getting it proportionally of what you invested. Does that make sense? Okay. And then you can do whatever you want with your money. You can either reinvest it in another deal, or you can put it in your bank account and go to Disney World. It's your choice, your money. This is a very important slide. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah? In terms of how it all works, basically, in terms of the process. Okay. Some of the mistakes I made. Now is where it gets juicy. So, again, I know I've said a couple of times this is important, but this is the $20 million lesson I want to share with you. So, I need to somehow get rid of this little thing here. Okay, so you can see here there's 2 sides to this equation. And there's 2 mentalities here. And I want to be very clear up front. I'm not saying one mentality is right and one mentality is wrong. It's like cricket and rugby. It doesn't make cricket right and rugby wrong, and it doesn't make rugby right and cricket wrong. But if you try to play rugby on a cricket pitch, you're going to get hurt. And if you play cricket on a rugby pitch, you're going to get hurt. Does that make sense? Are you with me? Okay, so on the left-hand side of the fence, you've got the old school mindset, and on the right-hand side of the fence, you've got the new age mindset. If you take a building, it could be any building in the world, and, why is my mouse not coming? If you take this building over here, the way that you traditionally will finance a building is you'll get about 60% of the money from a bank, you'll get about 30% from private equity, and you'll need to put in about 10% equity, so 10% cash. The old school mindset is I must control the asset. It's a very South African thing, by the way. Fair van jou goed na in jou skade, not a great pronunciation on my part, but that's what I'm trying to say. It's all about control. I must control everything. So if I need to control everything, then I need to control the asset. So I want to put at least 95% of the money in so that I control everything. So I've got, 95% of the money. I control the building. I can sell it when I want. I can put air conditioning in if I want. I'm in control. The other side of the fence is the new age, which is all about diversification and partnership. So exact same model, bank 60, private equity 30, equity 10. But the new age way of looking at it is, I tell you what, I don't want to take I don't even want all the control. I'm only going to put in 10% of the money. Now, who do you think has more risk, just by the way? The left side, the red side, or the green? Which I'm on the wrong side. Sorry, I'm confused basically. I'm looking at it this way and you're looking at it that way. So, the red. Okay. So it's really interesting because the mindset traditionally, and literally the one I was brought up with, was you must control everything. Most people in business are like, I must have control. And the first time I ever learned this, my father was, as I think I said to you, was financial director of Rainbow Chickens, and Rembrandt bought Rainbow Chickens. And they only bought 40%. And I remember saying to my dad, why did they only buy 40? I thought people wanted to buy the whole company and control it. They were like, why would Rembrandt want to buy a chicken company and then have to run a chicken company? I'd rather buy 40% and let the people who know about running chickens run the chicken company. That was the first time I heard that story. The second time I heard that story, my mate runs, or not runs, but he's part of an investment bank in England, an investment brokerage called Strand. And it got bought by the Hanson family. Now, the Hanson family are in concrete. They've been around for generations. They are billionaires. And they bought 40%. I was like, wow, same pattern. Billionaire families, 40%. Same thing. They don't want to go and run a bloody investment bank. They're like, let those folks know how that are running the investment bank run it. We'll just come along for the ride. And this has been my argument the whole time, is that we can have all the control, but then we have to do the work. Whereas why don't we be like the billionaire companies and just literally like be passive in the process? So when you look at the risk, there's a lot more risk, in my opinion, on the red side than there is on the green side. And if you look at it when things go wrong, you've got all of your concentration in one place. So if you've got one building and all your money in it, you're literally concentrated. And again, yeah, you've got all the control, but when stuff goes wrong, you have to fix it. And I can tell you it's not very easy when it's long distance. So, on the other side of the fence, you've got diversification. So, you know what Ray Dalio said, 15 investments? But if you've got 15 investments and one of them doesn't work, and you've got, let's say, 12, 13 of them working, can you see why he said reduce your risk by 80%? It's just kind of common sense if you think about it, really, okay? Because you're diversified. Second thing is, you might have less control, but when it doesn't go wrong, who do you think fixes it? The local investors. They got 80% of their cash in. Trust me, they're much more motivated to fix it than you need to be. Are you with me? Yeah. The left-hand side is active. The right-hand side is armchair. The left-hand side is scarcity. The right-hand side is abundance. Wow. And in my opinion, this little slide that Shane helped me build, it's at this moment in our journey together that if you want to be on the red bus, it's been wonderful knowing you, but we don't do that. That's really important because alignment is one of the most important things in life. We only do diversification and partnership. And if people want to know, we split, I'm not going to go into all the details, but if you want to know why and how we split with Allvest in 2018, this was the reason. Because they wanted to do all the deals 100% control, and I wanted to do diversification and partnership. We couldn't agree, we split in 2018. So from 2019, every deal we've done is like this. So let me explain to you the lessons I learned through the mistakes of doing it the red way. This is a building, looks lovely building in Brisbane. I invested in this. By the way, I've got $400,000 in this building. And it was really exciting because it was going to be a new development. I'm sure most of you have dreamed of being a developer. I certainly did. And we bought the piece of land and we had the pre-sales. I don't want to give you a whole lesson on how to be a developer, but you generally get the pre-sales and you get the zoning, and then you go to the bank, you get the funding, you build the building, you sell the development, and you make lots of money. I mean, that's the story. Well, that's what I invested in. I was going to get a 28% return. It was fantastic. So anyway, these are all the pretty pictures. It was fantastic. I was super excited. They'd done the pre-sales in Hong Kong. It was all going according to plan. And then the Chinese government changed the rules. And they stopped people moving money out of China. And so all 12 pre-sales fell over. They didn't, so then the Australian banks stopped allowing foreigners to invest. So not just Chinese people, South Africans and everyone else. So no one that was outside of Australia could get a mortgage. Within 3 weeks, the construction finance was pulled. And we had invested $5.5 million in a hole. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my $6 million hole. But today is the most expensive swimming pool you've ever seen. I'm not joking. There's 82 of us that own that hole. Now, this is a classic example of having all the control. The investment committee, our very esteemed people in Pretoria, have run away. The developer has run away. And the 82 foreign investors own a big hole in the ground. And again, if we had institutional Australian investors next to us, we would not have a hole because they'd be fixing it. Does that make sense? And if anyone has any idea how hard it is to do development, try doing it in another country. So after 8 years of trying, this happened, well, we invested this in 2016. After 8 years of trying, last year, we managed to get a big Australian family that's worth $800 million involved as a partner. We have diluted ourselves from 100% owners to 20% owners.
Wow.
But they now are bringing the capital, they're doing the developments and everything. We'll be lucky to get 50 cents back on the dollar here. It's better than naught. But the point being is that this is what you get when you control stomach. Unfortunately, there's a second story which happened in America. So that same company loves to control everything. We were doing medical buildings, and they invested with one partner, so they did multiple buildings over and over and over again with the same partner. That partner during COVID did fraud, and all the buildings got repossessed by the bank. And so we as investors now, again, all foreign investors, no Americans. Trust me, if they're Americans, people would be in jail. No Americans, so the regulator does not care. Pretty buildings like this that we invested in, like literally will be lucky to ever see a cent here. So for me, that is the old school mindset. That's what you get. Those are the mistakes. On the other side of the fence, because it doesn't always go well, this Feldman group, we invested in another deal with them, which was this building, which is even more pretty. And I invested in this building as well. The interesting thing here, and I'm going to explain risk a little bit later, but the interesting thing here is that a 2-year fix on the mortgage. So the whole idea was they were going to lease up the building. It's called a value add. They were going to lease up the building. They had a 2-year fix on the mortgage. And then once they leased up the building, they'd remortgage, and we'd all be happy. Problem is, none of us saw the interest rate spike coming. This is a $60 million building. There was $20 million in equity put in. We invested $500,000. Now notice the difference in what I just said. The other ones were, we have the whole problem, okay? So this one, that family alone, out of the $20 million, had $7 million of their own capital. So they got hold of us, said, listen, we've got a problem. We need to fix this because interest rates have gone up. If we don't recapitalize this building, we'll lose the building. We're putting in $4 million and we're asking the other investors to put in some money to make sure we look after the building, which we did. There's nothing wrong with the building. We haven't lost the building. We currently are not getting income on the building, but we haven't lost our capital, and the income will resume as soon as they sort out the interest rates, etc. Because already interest rates are coming down. Are you with me?
Yes.
Can you see the difference between having a partner on the ground? They didn't care about a bunch of South Africans overseas. They didn't need to. They had $19.5 million from American investors, and they had $500,000 from international investors. $19.5 million and $500 from international. Can you see the difference? So this is, I'm showing you stuff where it doesn't work. I can show you all day long when it works. I want to show you when it doesn't work and the difference. And then I think, I'm not sure who else in the room invested in this deal, but I invested in this deal in New York. I don't know if, did you, Derek? Okay, so I invested in this deal. This is another good example, okay? This hasn't gone wrong. This is going according to plan. But should it go wrong, It's a $14 million deal. $8 million in equity was raised. $6 million came from American institutional partners and or family offices. $1.5 million came from our family office partners, Calio, and $500,000 came from us. Now, again, if the shit was to hit the you-know-what, okay, do you think that we would have to fly over and have a big hole in the ground? We wouldn't. Derek and I wouldn't be on a plane going to try to fix the problem in New York. They're going to fix the problem. So are you noticing the metaphor I like to use is that sucker fish on a whale. I'm quite happy being the little sucker fish on a whale. You're noticing where the 80% comes from now?
Yes.
Unfortunately learned through the school of hard knocks. So that's all we do. And if people don't like the model, then don't invest with us. It's that simple. In terms of managing risk and compliance, this is also quite important. So this is where I was talking about the different types of risk. So you can go read about it in terms of the resources, core plus, value add, opportunistic. I don't have time to go into it, but literally it explains how to manage risk in terms of deals. But what is important is that we work in a regulated environment. So we are a juristic rep under the FCA in England. It's a financial product, it's got phase protection, it's got European cash custody, so we work with the biggest European digital wallet provider in Europe. So your money's protected by European law. You've got multi-layered compliance, you've got your own transactional wallet. So what that means is that, like, you're not giving me the money and hoping I go and invest it nicely for you. It's going into your own wallet, and you've got data protection and investor database ring fencing. How do we protect your money? And there's actually a little video, if you want, that I've put on the Wealth University. But in simple terms, you've got external cash custody. So what that means is your money's not with me, your money's with Lemonway. Does that make sense? And I only talk about me, I'm not on my own, we're a team, but you get my point. I can't get a cocaine habit and piss off to the Seychelles. No, it's important though. Okay, portfolio governance. Like we actually have just as I said to you, a discretionary juristic rep out of England in terms of the portfolio management. Designated investor accounts. So what people are famous for is that, like, you might have a thing in the Seychelles and you think you've got a digital wallet, but all it is a lawyer running a trust account on a spreadsheet and going, actually, you've got $10, you've got 12, and you've got 13. But when stuff, and trust me, I know that the auditor in the room knows what I'm talking about, when stuff doesn't work, that's when you have to bring the liquidators in and try to figure out who has what and whatever. If you've got your own wallet, it's your wallet, you know. Ring fence deals. If you invest in a property fund and a deal is working and another deal is not working, they put the two together. They rob Peter to pay Paul, and you get a blended return. That's just how it works. Okay. Every one of our deals is completely ring fenced. So, you know, if you invest in an Australian deal, all of your money in an Australian deal, you've got a big problem. Straight up. But if the Aussie deal goes down, it doesn't take down some other deal, because they're completely ring fenced, which is again why diversification is so important. What's the next one? Designated corporate members. So that's effectively just setting up the structures, right? External custody of investments. So again, that's the regulation. And then finally, operational investment segmentation. So what we try and do, and it's not a perfect science, but what we try and do is you've got an operational team and then you've got like the investment team. And actually at the moment, we specifically outsource this with the likes of Calio Private Equity, etc., where they're actually doing a lot of the due diligence. So there is segmentation. Because what you don't want is where, you know, I need to make some money and I'm like, hey dudes, just put this deal on because I need to make some money. It doesn't matter if it's a good deal or not. We need a deal on the platform. That's what it means by segmentation. I know the ladies in the bank know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of segmentation and how important this is. Okay, and then this is again like a little bit of institutional language, but the way it works on deals is you kind of got low return, high return, and you've got low risk, high risk. And the concept they use is core plus, value add, and opportunistic. In simple terms, if you invest right in the middle of New Hawk and you've got a government tenant for 20 years, it's going to be a core asset. Okay, it's very low risk, but generally it's quite a low return. It'll be maybe 2 to 4% tops. Core plus tends to be, you know, it might be a good asset, good partner, but it might not be the center of Manhattan, it might be Atlanta, so it's deemed core plus. Value add is where the building might be 70% leased, and now, so this building as an example, I think said was 82% leased, okay? So I come along and I say, listen, Derek and his team have no idea what they're doing. I'm not being disrespectful, but I know how to fill this building up. So I'm going to buy it off Derek at 82%, and I'm going to fill it up to 100%, and then I'll sell it to someone else. That's what value add. Do you see what I mean? Because I'm filling the building. There's risk though, because there's operational risk. I might think I can fill the building up, but I don't, and then we've got a problem. And then finally, opportunistic is where it's like a new development. And there I've got this idea, I'm going to build 48 units, but I actually have to build it. And obviously from a returns perspective, you can get a better return, but risk perspective, it's higher risk. Make sense? Tax structuring and planning. I literally did this slide for you. No, I'm joking. But I mean, literally within the Wealth Hackers, there's a segment that we did with Garth Wellman around tax and structuring. I think myth 10 that I just wanted to kind of share with you. There's two myths around myth 10. The one is just be careful running off to these cheap little tax havens like the Seychelles or Mauritius or the Isle of Man, because what I found from experience, like there's one gentleman that I know that is an investor, but he immigrated to Portugal, and then the EU banned the Seychelles, and so even though he had all his structures and investments through the Seychelles, and even though the investments were in America, he couldn't get access to his money because it's blacklisted by the European Union. Okay, so just be careful again, what's your plan? Okay, like what you're thinking. And then that's the one myth. And the other myth for me is that people think that they can't invest unless they can't do it in their own name. And Garth's kind of given us parameters where it's a lot higher than people think. You know, you've got to be investing hundreds of thousands of dollars before it makes sense to go and set up an offshore structure, an offshore company, an offshore trust. So just be careful. I've done 4 offshore structures, so trust me, I know what I'm talking about here. You end up spending $10,000 on a structure to save you tax, but you would have paid a lot less tax than $10,000. So just be careful around that. And at a mastermind level, I mean, that's what Calio offer. They literally sit down and help people with that. We don't give tax advice, just to be clear. Yeah, that's what I meant by the Calio slide. There are 3 white papers that I'll give you as a gift that I wrote literally 10 years ago. The first one is if you want to invest in property. This is even if you want to get started in South Africa. The 5 laws to building wealth through real estate. So that's like the beginner. The next is you're a residential investor, but now you want to go and buy a residential house in London. The 5 keys to offshore real estate investment success. And then the 4th one is you want to get into commercial, and the 4 ways to expand your global real estate portfolio through strategic partnerships. So again, in that I specifically wrote questions that even if you wanted to go and buy a house in London, take it along, and when you see the estate agent, ask them the questions I've written down there. So, is it starting to make sense now? Right information, right partners?
Yes.
Yeah? If you want to go into this in more detail, again, it's a free course. I want to joke this next. You guys, you know what the problem with these like success summits and all this is they always try and upsell you stuff. So Sunette, this is the moment where we just run to the back of the room. No, it's free, don't worry about it. In all sincerity, this is a thing where Shane and I built it, where you can literally go through the 9 steps. I'll be honest with you, this is 4 hours long. It's there if you want it. Everything I've shared, you can go into it, you know, as a course. I wouldn't do it if I was you. I wouldn't. There's substance there if you want it, but I wouldn't. I'll do the passive income challenge. Because we consistently trying to get better and make life easier. It's there if you want it, but I would do the passive income challenge. That's the formula. And then I want to play a little game with you. So, who's up for a game? It's nearly lunchtime. Come on, it's time for a game. 12 o'clock. So, some of you might have seen this game before, but I quite like it. So, I've got a really direct question for you. Are you prepared to play with me? Can I play the game?
Yeah.
I'm going to play with 3 ladies in front of most. Okay, so you go see your doctor, and the doctor says, right, you've got a serious medical condition. You're like, oh my word. He says, listen, you have to lose like 10 to 15 kilos quickly. Obviously not me, because I've got nothing to lose, but the point being is that you got to lose it. Now, I also want to be clear, I hope this never happens to you, okay, in our little game, but let's just hypothetically play the game. And the doctor says to you, right, you have to do this, like it's literally life-threatening for you, it's important, it's really important to you. And he gives you 2 choices. He says, right, you can literally go home, you can get this home study course, and every morning you can wake up, it's a bit of exercise or whatever, and you must wake up every morning, you must do your exercises, home study, and you can do it on your own. That's your option 1. And the second option is, I've got this coach who comes along, he knocks on your door every morning, come, training time. If your life depended on it, which option would you take?
The coach.
Option 2, like it's obvious for all of us, okay?
Experience.
Yeah, you people online, type it in the chat box. I mean, so then the thing is like which one would give you more confidence? Does that make sense? You know. So I love playing games. You haven't really realized that because it's about trying to cement important principles. Does that make sense? So I tend to say to people, well, if you wanted the same thing with your wealth, and if your wealth was important, which would you do? You know, would you go home and kind of get the home study course? Or would you get the coach? And so for some investors, the super experienced, sophisticated, confident, motivated beyond belief, we've got just what the doctor ordered. We've got the home study courses. And we literally built, if you take the right information and the right partners, we literally built Wealth Going Global for people that want the right information. And we built Asset Mastery for people that want the right partners. So it's there. I mean, you can literally go tonight and you can get started on. For over 2 decades, we've figured out what works and also what doesn't work. But the biggest problem is with coaching generally, and I've given you some fairly outrageous numbers around what it normally costs to be able to do this. But we've always gone, how can we do this? How can we make it more affordable? How can we make it more effective and efficient for people? And the question is, you might notice a few patterns with me, but for me it's always simple. It comes back to technology. So just like Uber did it for taxis and Airbnb did it for motels and Netflix did it for Blockbuster, our logic was, how do you take all of the experience, the coaching programs, the mastermind, the family office, and literally listen to what the investors want? Because can we all agree that the current investment space is broken?
Yes.
I'm not here to have an argument or a fight, but the facts, quite frankly, speak for themselves. And so we tried to fix it. And our logic was that people want the information, it's there, they can go and do it. But what's interesting, according to Harvard, is you've got a 400% better chance if you've got a coach. And I shared with you this video yesterday, and I know that people online can't hear it. So I'm not going to play it again, I'm just going to put up the wording. But I want to remind you what he said, because what I find really interesting is that according to Harvard, you're 400% better off, which is 4 times, doing it on your own versus getting a coach. But according to this research, you're 5 times better off doing it in a group than doing it one-to-one. So the way I see that, that's 4 times 5. You can do it on your own, or you can be 20 times better off doing it in a like-minded group. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Are you with me in terms of my maths? Now,
Yes.
we could argue, so Scott, your maths is wrong, it might be 10 times. Scott, your maths is still wrong, it might be 5 times. Okay, it's still 5 times better than doing it on your own.
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
There is one challenge that you got though. Because the maths only works if you've got a collection of people that are actually doing it together. So, and again, I'm giving you a little bit of deeper analysis here, but the reason that anyone that joins the mastermind meets with us one-to-one is because if you come along to me, and it doesn't make it wrong, but if you say I want to do crypto trading, that's awesome, but that's not what we do. So we're making sure that people want to do globally diversified passive income and portfolio growth. That's it. So it's about making sure we've got people that are doing the same thing. And then lastly, down to the leader and the group, then, I mean, that's your choice. I can't talk to that one. In terms of, but ultimately you need a group of people that are committed to getting results and a leader that's prepared to make it happen. So yeah, this is the picture that if you get to know me well, it won't be the first time you see this. Because whenever anyone complains to me, I send this to them on the WhatsApp. And that's why we built the mastermind. And I told you, that's the kind of the focus. That's how we do it, and that's what we do in terms of the process. I'm not going to go into this in a huge amount of detail unless people want me to. What I will do is, because we're going to break for lunch now, if people want to talk to me a little bit about it or want to ask questions or whatever, I'll just stay in here and ask questions. Is that cool? Is that fair? Yes. I mean, for others that are not interested, no problem. There's lunch outside in terms of the process. Because, this is the 9 steps that we take people through. There's the learning platform, there's the investment platform, and there's a way to apply for it. And I'm happy to kind of sit with people and kind of go through it in more detail. Do you remember, I know it feels like 1,000 years ago, but can you remember Jordan?
Yes.
Okay. And basically what Jordan was looking for. Diversified passive income, diversifying across countries, currencies, and assets, using his limited time to get effective results, saving decades of frustration and millions of dollars so he can get the right knowledge, wealth protection, plan B, peace of mind, be held accountable, family office, generational wealth, a plan, a wealth plan, and results. We built the mastermind to help people achieve that. And same for Victoria on the other side of the fence. Ultimately, a packed schedule, streamlined investment strategy, wanting to ultimately feel empowered to be able to make her own decisions and aiming for financial freedom so that she had more time with her cherished ones. We built it for her as well. Does that make sense? And I specifically have avatars up here because they're actually real people, but it's not right to share their stories. So I wanted to, just before we break for lunch, I want to share a little video from Cynthia, and I purposely am not sharing too many testimonial videos because you've had the privilege of Abdul and Derek and Judy up here. But this lady I want to share with you. She's got a 17-minute recording, which I'll share with you, but today I'm only going to play you the 4-minute recording, okay? Just because you can watch it in your own time. Why I want to share this with you is because I just love how inspiring her story is. So again, single mom, divorced, literally not knowing what to do because she was a teacher in Italy and didn't know literally what to do because her 3 kids were going to university. It was like, what do I do? She had worked in her 20s. She had some of her money. She'd literally in her 20s, took some money and invested it when she was working in Hong Kong and had done nothing with it. And after 20 years, it matured. And she sat on this money for 3 years not knowing what to do. Like that analysis paralysis, Jeanette, that fear that KG was talking about and that everyone talks about. Like even when you got $10, it's like, oh, I don't want to lose that $10, And then she also talked, which is right, it's the stage of life where she didn't have the ability to make mistakes. Does that make sense? So I just want to share this little video with you because for me it's about inspiring people. Does that make sense? My logic is if she can do it, we can all do it in terms of the process. So let me just share this little video with you. Where have you gone, Cynthia? No, that's the long video. 22 seconds. So I need to move the shortened videos that I made. Hey man, where is it now? Yeah.
So what were the problems and challenges you were facing?
Yeah, the problem was huge. The problem was I'm living in a foreign country. I can't go back into my old career, which was China media, because I'm living in Italy. I had 3 kids to feed. I'd left my husband. And I was like, where's my skill set? So I was actually at the stage of like, just how do you put food on the table? And I, found a place to live, suddenly had all 5 of those income streams dried up during COVID. And it was the first time it hit me that I was working for money, selling my time for my hours for time, and that my money wasn't working for me. And COVID and that incident and that realization happened at the same time that 20-year fund came to maturity, and I suddenly had a chunk of cash. It wasn't a lot of cash by any means, but you got to start with what you start with. And I was in that frozen position of like, what do I do with it? Like, I need this money to work for me because I'm over here scrambling to find a job and to put food on the table for the kids. I was really at that paralyzed, what do I do? What do I invest in? I was at that age where I felt like I don't have another, ride it out 20 years and the stock market always rebounds. I don't have another 20 years to ride it out. Like I had to do that's what my fear was.
A lot of people talk about wealth protection, and that's what I'm hearing. It's one thing to grow your capital, but you also want to protect the capital you've worked, so hard to create over the years. Why did you choose to work with us? What was it that attracted you?
It was very hard to find, like-minded people who understood different parts of the world and who naturally understood diversification. And the mastermind narrowed that down and made it even more specific, diversifying across time and currencies and assets, is even more focused. But just the general idea of diversification. I mean, all my European friends just invest in European things and all my American friends just invest in US things. So I really liked that. And then I liked the overall philosophy that we were trying to make what's available to the 1% available to the average person. And that really resonated with me, because no matter how much you learn, you're always thinking, what's that little bit I don't know? What's that part of the puzzle I don't know, because I'm not, a high net worth individual. Phenomenal. You have a half an hour free Zoom meeting with them, and with the president in the room, not just someone who's going to execute. And they say, what's your story? What are your needs? What's your financial situation? And I pulled up that matured fund that I had and said, I need to invest this, but I don't want to, I can't invest it for the long term. Here are my needs. I have immediate goals. I have 3 children that have just gone off to college. So I suddenly have immediate financial goals that I'm not going to be able to meet if I keep just relying on my income or selling time for money. And they listened. They asked really smart, relevant questions I wouldn't have thought of, but they were particular to me. And I didn't feel like I was being put into a box of, you're this type of investor, or you're this type of investor, or you're this type, And it wasn't just the are you high risk? Are you low risk? It was really they really tried to understand my needs. And within 24 hours, they had a proposal to me that said, here's what we're going to do to get you money right now. And then here's what we're going to hold off on and keep discussing and think about and get you into eventually. But here's what we're going to do to solve your immediate problem. And within 1 month, I had income coming in from an investment from them, which just liberated me. I mean, it was just the buffer I needed to not panic about money anymore, and to make the rest of the decisions slowly and, from a different mindset. It's a safety net that's just unbelievable to me, that someone who is not by any means a high net worth individual can have your money working for you, can have my money working for me, and give me that peace of mind.
Yeah.
But there really isn't anything like finding the partnerships that we have in this group. I mean, there is no way, for all of my love of reading financial documents and being on financial websites and blogs, there isn't any way I would have ever found the partners to invest with and to invest in without being in this group. There's just no physical way I could have ever, industrial buildings in Texas, or, healthcare centers in Brisbane. How am I going to find those sitting here in the middle of Europe? So, yeah, I think the partnership is the number one reason to join the mastermind. It's not just about the knowledge. It's about how do you execute, but you can't execute unless you have the deals in front of you. And you can't have deals in life, in any aspect of life, unless you have good partners. And it's a partnership that I would highly recommend people to, it's worth the entire investment. I would say jump. I mean, when I think of where I was 1 year ago, it's a million miles away. And not just because I have income coming in, but knowing what my next steps are. Like, I know where I'm going. I know where the next chunk of money is going to go into. I know what, I want to invest in. I know what I don't want to invest in. And I know the partners that I want to do it with. And that's just a huge weight off anybody's, financial shoulders.
I just show that because I think sometimes people might even think, Abdul, he looks really sophisticated, and Derek, he's chairman, and Judy, she's at an exit, or it's not for me. And with all due respect, I'm playing with the 3 of you, but I love to show that video because we're all human at heart, and in terms of that process. So let's make some decisions, because I don't know who's hungry in this room. But the decisions that we've got basically are, just before we do the decisions. So some people just ask me kind of how it works, and Shane built this because it's quite nice. So if you kind of take the aspirational ladder, you've got Wealth Going Global, which is the right information, you've got Asset Mastery, which is the right partners, and then you've got the Mastermind, which is kind of access to the family office. And then that's what we had. And then we built Wealth Hackers to help people climb up that aspirational ladder. Make sense? I quite like this little graph. It just makes it easy for people to kind of see how it all works. So what I wanted to share with you, we've got 2 choices for lunch. This guy, Selwyn, and I know a bunch of mastermind members have heard him talk, and he's spoken a couple of times at our event. But effectively, he runs the due diligence for the Calio private equity team. He's got a PhD from Cambridge in mathematics. His partner, he's a chartered accountant, CFA, plus his partner's a chartered accountant. Has spent 20 years in the institutional space, particularly in R&B and you know, some big brands we already know. And then they started Calio Private Equity within the family office. I stand to be corrected, it was about 6-7 years ago, I don't know exactly. And there's a 41-minute video where he's literally explaining how they go and find partners. And you know, what's really interesting is that whether it's a deal in America or a deal in Germany, everything that I've shared with you for the last hour or however long it's been is the same principles. They don't try and go to Germany and do it all themselves. They don't try and go to New York and do it all themselves. And they talk through the philosophy of how they do their deals. Now, the decisions you need to make are twofold. One is that I sense the energy in the room needs lunch.
You can have lunch and watch a movie.
So that was my logic. For those of you, because you might or might not have seen this, for those of you that have seen this, why don't you enjoy lunch and the scenery outside? And for those of you that haven't seen it and want to see it, why don't you go outside, grab some lunch, and in 5 minutes I start the video and you can watch it. And for those of you that are like, I don't know what to do, you get to talk to Derek. No, I'm joking. No, but on a serious note, like, you can do whatever. So, because I think it's quite a nice time to kind of have a break. I'll put it on for the people online. They can also listen to it. Again, he's just like Gary yesterday, where the pearls of wisdom are invaluable. Okay, so even if you don't watch it now and you want to go and have a lunch break and check your phone and all that, I still highly recommend you watch it, because it really starts to give substance to the caliber of the partners that are behind it. By the way, and we're not even going to try and do it today. There's an interview I've got with Judd. There's another guy called Bruce Saunders, who we've done $100 million of investment with. He's ex-South African, by the way, but he's lived in Atlanta since 1997. And again, we've got an interview with him. So if you want to see the partners, if you met Gary yesterday already, if you want to meet some of the more partners, you can literally see them, and you know, so it's not just one partner. You can go and meet them. This one's slightly different because they're like sort of part of the due diligence team that's helping look for the other partners. Does that make sense? You know. So are we in agreement that it's better to do option 2 than I all hold you in here without lunch for 41 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Can I just see a show of hands? Who would like to watch this with Selwyn? Because it basically means the lunch break will be roughly 41 minutes long, or 45 minutes long, because they need to just go outside, go to the toilet, get a sandwich, etc. But I'm just interested, who would like to? And by the way, if no one wants to watch it, so be it. I can share the recording. You'd like to watch it? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Anyone else? Huh? You watch it? I'll share the recording. Don't worry about the recording. But if you want to do it now, I tell you why.
There's only like 2 of us, then.
No. Don't stress about that. That's not the challenge. Trust me, everyone else will enjoy having some time outside. Why it's valuable? I found that busy people say they'll watch the recording, like I do it all the time, and I never do. Okay, we're not in a rush. We will finish on time, and so my attitude is take the time now to kind of get the knowledge. Does that make sense? You know, so that's my opinion. That's why I'm kind of forcing the situation, if you want to call it that. Okay, and then if you want to watch the recording and you want to talk to me about the mastermind, which some might be there, I'm going to make that easier for you. I won't talk about the mastermind during lunch, because that was my plan. But what I've realized is I was going to play the video and then do lunch, but I'm deciding to do lunch and the video, which means I'll figure out the mastermind afterwards. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So just a bit of, I will ask you nicely though, can we literally run outside, go to the toilet, grab your drink, grab your sandwich, and we get going like literally in 5 minutes, if that's cool? Just because for everyone else, it means the lunch break will be roughly 45 minutes. Is that cool? Everyone? Yeah? Okay. Okay, to all of you online, if you can literally give me 5 minutes, I'm going to put a video on that says 5 minutes countdown, and then we're going to get Selwyn's conversation going. So you can also run off and have a toilet break and whatever, and grab yourself some lunch and a coffee and whatever you want to do, and then we will rock and roll.
or less than for finding yourself looking up at an ideal. For saying, hey, there's a delta between where I am and where I want to be, and I can obtain that.
No, definitely. It sounds very interesting.
You know what one of my greatest strengths has become? It's not earlier mornings or quadruple deficiency, not a biohack or a evolved daily routine. It's learning to be kind to myself. And if that seems fluffy or unimportant, I want you to picture someone never running to, but always running from. Always motivated by fear. Endless examples. A mere jog on a summer afternoon was never fast enough. Other content creators, authors, writers, speakers were always better, always further along. Imaginary competition always seemed to move faster, where they were always doing more. I used to call this perpetual state of lack a chip on my shoulder. This is what kept me going, the giant shadow of failure. I can't fail, I can't fail, I can't fail, I won't fail, not me. So I'll do more and I'll push harder. And I'm not sorry about that. In fact, it was probably what I needed for that season of my life. It hardened me up, made me tougher. And I think most importantly brought me to where I am today. A sort of inverse position, learning to be just as motivated from a place of abundance. You can run just as ferociously towards something as you can from something. And guess what? When you reach the finish lines, you actually appreciate them. Running not away from what I'm fearful of, but towards what lights me up. True story. Every time my YouTube channel hit some sort of subscriber milestone, for years, I'd get a note from a good friend of mine, Dave, who'd say, hey, congrats. Don't forget to celebrate the accomplishment. Every time. And I'd be, grateful for the message. But celebrate, that part I'd kind of overlook. That's nice, I'd think. But when I started to really understand the importance of that message, I started to see things differently. You have to celebrate. You celebrate because now is the magic. If you can't appreciate now, you will appreciate nothing. Doesn't mean stop, doesn't mean go easier or minimize the destination. It means remember to love the ride because you are, as the saying goes, in the midst of the good old days. Don't wait to be 90 years old to appreciate them. And I'm not, again, sorry that it took me so long to get there. Perhaps that's why I've learned to appreciate this point of view so much. I've seen the inverse. I'm not sorry I spent so much time running away from what I fear and don't want. No, I'm grateful that now I've learned to live in abundance, to run towards what lights me up. Really focusing on each step, finding gratitude in all of it. And of course, it's not always easy, right? There are days where I have to really work to see the value, but when I try, which is the point, I eventually find it. I learned this by stumbling into it. And so in your world, I have a request. Maybe you can frame it as an experiment. What if you completely cut all the sorry stuff? Stopped being sorry for your mistakes. Stop being sorry for the things you aren't happy about or the cosmic injustices you feel have occurred. And what if you started being grateful for the realization that you can change them? You started being appreciative of the fact that you're on your way to something better. Maybe in your context, running from and running to are different. But I'd be willing to bet there's a rearranging that can transform life as you currently know it. And who would have thought, that rearranging is what we come to value most. So don't be sorry about what's occurred or where you are. Be excited. Be grateful. Because life is about to begin.
Cool. So let's get where's he gone? Selwyn. Okay, so just quickly, just to manage expectations, I'm just going to run out and go to the toilet and get a sandwich because yesterday I didn't get lunch and that's not going to happen. But what I will do once I'm done, I'll get some air, but I will come back and make sure it's all working and if there's any questions or anything. But yeah, let's get to learn and listen to Selwyn. This guy's incredible, and I think the whole time you need to be asking yourself, is this the type of person I want to partner with? Does that make sense? Are you with me? Or even better, not only is this the type of person I want to partner with, but is this the type of person who I want to be doing due diligence on potential partners I'm partnering with? Are you with me? Okay. And that's the same for all of you online. So yeah, enjoy.
Thank you.
Selwyn, it's awesome to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. Sorry. It's wonderful to have you online. And just before we get started with you, I wanted to share with people a little glimpse into kind of you guys' background. So firstly, in terms of Callio Private Equity, you know, I just love this, the front of your website, where it's literally communities are more powerful than networks. We're going to talk a lot about this today because, you know, I always say the number one way to manage risk is the right information and the right partners. And how do you do that? Well, it's about getting access to the right networks, basically, you know what I mean? And what you guys do is take it to the next level, which is community. And it's really what we're doing. I mean, on this thing, this diversification challenge is a community of people. At Callio Private Equity, we aim to build and grow community through our investment and advisory activities. We bring it together like-minded individuals and companies that exchange resources and advance ideas, deepening the solidifying relationship of trust. And if I go to team, just to give a little bit of an introduction to Selwyn. So there's two partners, Glenn and Selwyn. So Selwyn has over 20 years of experience consulting and banking locally and abroad. He began his career at McKinsey & Co. in Johannesburg, undertaking projects across Africa. He subsequently co-founded and managed RMB's opportunity in real estate in the global real estate portfolio, and later co-founded the RMB Westport Real Estate Development Fund, the largest sub-Saharan and real estate private equity fund at the time. Prior to joining Callio Private Equity, Selwyn led ABSA's commercial property finance business in Africa as a principal for the ABSA Group. He currently serves on the board of trustees of the African Leadership Academy. And if you don't see it here, he has a PhD, which is a doctorate in mathematics from Cambridge University, which is pretty impressive. So without further ado, Selwyn.
You sound a little bit like my mom, but I appreciate that.
Well, you know, someone has to tell people you came from Cambridge. You know, when we're talking about risk and due diligence, I want people to at least kind of have a bit of a sense of who they're talking to, if that makes sense, you know, in terms of it. So let's get started. And before we go any further, just tell us. I mean, I've read your bio. No one ever likes to brag, so I do it for you. But tell us just a little bit about your journey. I mean, really, you can see you've got a very extensive journey in property, in real estate, in funds, in private equity, etc. Just talk a little bit about it. How did you get into it? And, you know, just so people have an idea of who's in the room.
So Scott, I mean, you've read out my bio. I started as an academic and realized that wasn't really an expression of myself. I didn't want to be in research and I didn't want to be stuck in an institution. And the best way for me to get diverse experience in commerce was through consulting. And when I joined McKinsey in Johannesburg, it was the fastest growing office in the world, McKinsey's fastest growing office in the world. And we had very diverse clients and very diverse projects in operations, strategy, organization, capital planning, and so on. After being there for a few years, McKinsey has gone through phases, as people on this call would know. I joined RMB, and that was actually life-defining for me, joining RMB. My current partner, Glenn Scorgi, was one of the first people that I worked with when I joined RMB. And in your point earlier, I'm actually glad I joined a little early and was able to listen to what you said.
I'll just share here, just so people can see. This is Glenn, who Selwyn's referring to. So
yeah. So Glenn and I started to work together in 2004, I think it was, when we first traveled together. We were looking for opportunities. We had a relatively open mandate. The banking world was very different in those days, much less regulated and constrained than it became after the global financial crisis. And what I loved about the banking world is something that I've retained in private equity, and that I think speaks to your audience, Scott, speaks to the people who are here. And that is the sense that your risk is the risk that you see. Consulting is always 1 degree removed. You're telling people what to do, you're giving advice, and then you walk away. You leave your PowerPoint presentation on the desk, and you get back into your fancy car and drive away, and then go to the next client. With and particularly the R&B culture as it was in those days, you are very well aligned with the bank as your principal investor. And Glenn and I ran a principal investing business, and then later on went into funds and into property and into various other areas inside the bank, but always having that particular philosophy. So I think the journey for me is having found that world where you're very well aligned with the people that you work with the people who supply you with resources, with capital in particular. I always wanted to stay in that. And obviously I moved in banking and developed an expertise in property, but I've always liked the idea of being a generalist. And Glenn had developed a relationship with Garth, who you mentioned in your presentation as well, Scott. They were kind of social friends, and and Garth wanted to build the capability in Callio for Callio to do private equity in a I think a different way. Just to dwell on that for a moment, private equity investments are often presented as investments into funds, and the traditional private equity managers, the famous private equity managers that are out there, Apollo, Cerberus, Blackstone, and so on, those managers manage giant funds. Glenn and I had both been investors in funds on behalf of R&B and had managed funds on behalf of R&B, and we didn't feel that fully captured the idea of alignment that we wanted with our investors, the idea of a fund. And what we do in Callio Private Equity is direct private equity. That's our core business, it's direct private equity, which is individual transactions or individual investments matched to groups of investors for that investment. So, for example, investors who don't like a particular sector or who want to be more offshore or whatever it is, we can offer them investments that make more sense for their portfolio or for their levels of interest. The other thing that we realized would be very powerful is what you mentioned, Scott, which is the community side. Callio has a family office and a wealth management business. It has clients who, many of whom have been in business or are in business and have networks and links of their own. We don't really like the idea of networking in the sense of, attending cocktail parties and doing that kind of thing.
Just by the way, that's the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard, where you walk around and hand out your business card.
Yeah, hand out your business card.
It's literally like poor man thinking. Like, it doesn't work. It
doesn't work. It doesn't. And so the deepest due diligence that you can do on your partner is just knowing them, or knowing somebody who's been in business with them and seen them operate under different kinds of circumstances, and somebody who can vouch for their integrity. So many of the people that we invest in are people that are part of the broader Callio community or our own personal networks, in the sense of we know people who've worked with them, or we know people who've invested with them, and many of our opportunities come through that kind of channel. And I think that's very powerful.
By the way, sorry for butting in. I know people hate me doing it, but I'm just trying to give context to people. Remember to everyone who's listening, remember what I just said literally half an hour ago. What he's talking about is you test people's character not when it's working, it's when it's not working. And that's the power of knowing a relationship, because everyone tells you about all their wins, but they often don't tell you about their losses.
Yes. So and for me, the best example is actually my own business, Callio Private Equity. So why is it that after working with Glenn in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, we went our separate ways just because of the way things evolved in R&B and the property businesses and so on, and then we joined together. Glenn and I lived through the global financial crisis together, and we were very, very heavily exposed in our portfolio to that. We managed a portfolio of with assets of over $250 million, but it was exposed to the property sector. So it was the most heavily hit sector during that global financial crisis. But I could see how Glenn worked. I could see how I worked under those circumstances, and you can build a rapport, and you can now build that level of trust, which is so fundamental. And if I look at the investee CEOs that we work with, not all of them have the same level of capability, or to be completely blunt, the same level of integrity or alignment with us. But the point is that we try to find people who will have that alignment. And in situations where they're facing adversity, we'll do the right thing. And at least we'll think through the process with us aligned with them. So to give you an example, and I think Scott in various other presentations, I think Glenn might have presented to a different audience, but Austin Business Finance, which trades as backed in Texas. Glenn and I were visiting that business last week. The CEO, through COVID period, said he would never stop paying interest to our investors. So we actually offered to him and said, we're pretty sure your business needs liquidity in a time like this. So we're happy to approach our investors and say, you're not going to be getting your interest payments. We felt that might be the right thing for the business. And he said, no, he didn't want to do that. He felt the correct thing was to maintain a 100% track record with us and with our investors, even if that meant making a personal sacrifice on his side. And he was able to trade through, and the business has grown and actually grew through the COVID period. Other competitors went out of business, had to be resuscitated or bailed out, but he was able to do this. And I think he took a risk, but the point was that he wanted to ensure both that he was aligned and that he communicated to us that he had that alignment with us. So I think, Scott, your various comments very pertinent. In our deal making, we try not to be the majority. We want to make sure that management and the people who are going to be required to deliver on the investment thesis.
I'm being rude, but I'm just coming back to this, like what I call old school mentality, new school mentality, because old school is, and by the way, Glenn did an incredible presentation last week to our mastermind, was about private equity, and I'll show you some of the slides. Again, people have access to get asset mastery should they want. But the point being is that the old school way of doing it in business or in property was to go and buy the whole thing, okay? And the first time I ever learned about this, ladies and gentlemen, was actually my father. So my father was the financial director of Rainbow Chickens, and he said that Rembrandt, that's one of the most wealthy families in the world, came in and bought 40% of the company. And now the old school mindset is, no, but I must own more than 50%. I must be in control of the company. And then a couple of years later, my friend works in England for a company called Strand, and they're a private equity firm, funny enough, as well. And they got bought out by a big family, and this family, the Hanson family, bought them for 40%. I thought, shit, there's a pattern there. The wealthiest families in the world are buying 40%. Why are they not buying 51%? Because we're all taught to go buy the whole thing and we must control it and whatever. And the point being is that that's an old school way of doing it, because if you control it, you have to manage it. And then, interestingly enough, literally last week, Glenn said, no, we're into conscious capital, and we'd much rather the founders and the owners and the team and, whatever, have the majority, because then they're going to get out of bed every morning and worry about it and getting it done versus you getting out of bed every morning and worrying about it. So I'm jumping in, Solomon, but I'm just trying to give context to my little picture that I drew here, basically where you're going,
Yeah, that's exactly it. And then the other component is often leaving space for other key employees. So yes, the founder, manager, it's often also other people who are needed to be aligned and who need to have the same kind of orientation. So we're very keen, like in our contracting, we're very keen being on the remuneration committees of the companies that we invest in, both to avoid the conflict that you have with the CEO founders, but also to manage that next level, to say, who else is important here? Are they correctly incentivized? Are they locked in? Is there the correct protection for the company and the correct alignment for that employee? So to try to understand how value is being delivered, and knowing that as an investor, you are bringing a particular kind of value. You're bringing risk capital, but you're not bringing operational capabilities. You're not bringing market knowledge or anything like that necessarily directly. You sometimes can help, and I think we do help our investees. And we often intervene when they want us to intervene, and they'll say, can you help us with this? Can you talk to the bank for us? Can you sit on this call? We've got this issue with one of the other shareholders. Can you help us? We're always available to our investees to do those kinds of things, and to investee CEOs and founders. But we are we're fully aware we're not able to do what a CEO does day in and day out. We're not able to do what a management team does day in and day out. And we're deliberately if we could run, one of our investees, we would, rather than do our current job. But we actually believe that our founders should be the best at running their own businesses, both because they should be fully aligned, but also they should be developing their knowledge as they go, as they operate, and they should have entered with a particular understanding of their business, which obviously we test. Yeah. So, yeah, to go back to your original question about personal journey, I think for somebody like me who feels that they're a generalist, wants to be involved in quite a few things, likes the interactions, which are, I think, meaningful interactions with partners. This is a very good job that I have. And I'm able to speak to CEOs about something that's very fundamental to them. In many cases, I'm able to help them, and our role in their lives is actually quite fundamental. And we do have investees who are very thankful for the way we've approached things. And we've actually had people seek us out saying, I know I can get the money somewhere else. I could probably get a better deal somewhere else, but I'd actually rather have somebody who wants to relate to me when things are not going well, will understand that or help me intervene in a positive sense. So that's the conscious capital side, in terms of not just in terms of the final end goal investment, but also in terms of how we operate those investments and how we make those investments on day one.
Yeah. So let's go. I want to share my screen here quickly, and we're not going to regurgitate everything that Glenn went through. So Glenn did this session for our mastermind, and like I said to you, every month we go deep into one asset class. And Glenn, actually, funny enough, literally this month of October, did the private equity one. So again, you can get this as part of asset mastery. But what I just wanted to talk about a little bit was just the asset class of private equity, because some people confuse it in terms of what is it, etc. And in simple terms, it sometimes gets confused, but private equity is where you invest in a company, but it's a non-listed company, so it's a private company, and it can also be a property deal. Like, we're going to talk through some real opportunities now, so people can get a sense of it. But just from your perspective, Selwyn, how would you sum up private equity?
Yeah, I think you've already summed it up. So it's a massive asset class. Normally when they show private equity or the size of private equity, they're only talking about those things that show up in formal funds. But if you think about it, almost every business, any business that is not listed, is a private equity business, in the sense of operating outside the public, outside the public listed markets. So it's a very wide range of potential investees. And it's our area in private equity is a little bit above venture capital, but certainly below what we would normally classify as buyouts or mergers and acquisitions. We invest in what we call growth. So it's the supply of capital to businesses that want to grow, and for whom the best form of capital is equity capital and long-term permanent capital in some other form, potentially permanent debt even. So that's how I would classify our version of private equity.
Brilliant. And I think, again, I'm not going to go through all these slides, but going through this whole presentation, there was like, what are the different returns? How do you balance risk and return? There was talking about private equity in 2022 and where the opportunities were. It was talking about the Callio private equity team and taking to extend more around what Selwyn has already spoken about and what differentiates them. But what I wanted to do was actually to pivot, and I want to start talking about some using a deal as an example to kind of talk about kind of risk and partners, because I kind of want to get in. So as an example, this is an opportunity that is literally becoming available as we speak. It's one of the ones that you've done a lot of due diligence on, but let's not use this as an example, as a case study for kind of the type of thinking that you would go through in terms of risk and due diligence. So let's just say now, I want to be in American property. I personally have been wanting to be in it since 2010. I've been wanting to get into Manhattan for my whole time, and I've never once been able to invest in New York, let alone Manhattan, because it just never found a way to be able to do it, never found a partner on the ground. And so talk us through, Selwyn, the process you and Glenn go through in ascertaining a market, finding the partner, doing the DD on a deal, and determining, yep, this one's good for our investors.
So this is actually a fantastic example, Scott. So one of the sponsors of the underlying transaction for this Catherine Street transaction in Manhattan is somebody called Duncan Randall. Duncan and I have known each other. We were for over 20 years. We were together in McKinsey, and we served on the same team and landed up living in the same house for several months, serving a particular client. Duncan is married to an American. He's lived in America for several years now, and he's built a property business using his own money and money from other investors. He had previously been a private equity operator in South Africa. He was one of the founders of Tana Africa, which is funded by the Oppenheimer family and a sovereign wealth fund from Singapore. So here is somebody that we know very well. Duncan knows that we have an investor base that is interested in these kinds of assets. He has shown me personally transactions. Before I joined Callio Capital, I invested with him myself. So I have a sense of how he's operated. I know how he's operated through difficult times like the COVID period and how he's been able to manage assets. He actually approached us and said, this is what's going to come available. I want to structure a deal which will allow your investors to invest into this debt. There are other people in his network that he's offering this to, and so we had a chance to review his due diligence, look at the documentation ourselves, ask various questions, understand the market studies, and so on. But the starting point was this was not something we sought out. We did not do a web search and say, well, deals available in Manhattan.
And by the way, if you do that, just quickly, sorry, if you do that, like you're buying the crap no one else in America wants. By the time it's on the web, no one else
exactly
wants
right. Yeah, so this is very much a private deal based on relationships that we have and that other people would simply not have access to. So I think this is one of those examples. Every single one of the deals that we have was sourced or has been sourced through somebody coming to us and saying, do you want to participate? Does this interest you? Is this something that your investor base is likely to go for? And then we can interrogate it and say yes or no. In this case, what was brought to us was a very much established transaction. A lot of the initial property work had been done to a very high standard. Duncan himself works with a team that has a lot of experience in this particular kind of property redevelopment. Historic buildings in Manhattan that are being redeveloped. There's a system where you get historic credits which allow you to benefit, to effectively do your developments at a cheaper rate because you're getting these tax credits. And so a lot of the work had already been done. It was a question of reviewing that and understanding that and getting a sense of the risk return. We already had a strong sense of the sponsor and the way that they would approach this. So yeah, so this particular transaction, what's been offered is senior debt secured by a long-term lease on a property that was formerly owned by the Catholic Church. It's in the process of being transferred from the Catholic Church to the development company. And the funding is senior funding, as I said. It's secured funding. It's 1% a month payable quarterly. So very good return. we've again, to Scott's principles, we've said we will only take a relatively small portion of it. We're probably going to take somewhere between 15 and 20% of the total debt that's available, so that other people can put their money in. There's a big group of investors, many of whom have invested before with Duncan and with the other sponsors in his team, and so that offers us a sense of comfort. Other people are reviewing the documentation. Other people have experience on this, and there's I think strong alignment with the total investment team.
A couple of things that I think are first you're saying. So firstly, there's power of community. Okay, so like it's not like me trying to do it all on my own. Like, oh my God, I'm going to do all my own due diligence, whatever. It's like there's a whole group of us, you know, like looking at it and whatever, doing it. The second thing is that from a risk perspective, you're effectively taking out the bank. Like you're almost taking the position of the bank because you're putting the first mortgage debt down. So you're behaving like a bank. You're putting the money down. You've got first mortgage debt over the property. So should stuff go wrong, the property's there. It's exactly like when a bank lends you money against your house. And for the bank interest rate, you're getting paid 1% a month, paid quarterly, which basically means you're getting 12% a year in US dollars. Now, please tell me, and again, I've been doing this 28 years, 12% in Manhattan, New York, okay, for a 12-month project, it can be extended to 18 months, but it's still a short-term project, 12 to 18 months. If it gets extended to 18 months, by the way, you still get paid your 1% per month. So you're still getting 12% a year. I mean, that is a really, really good return. Now, you're not getting the capital growth. Remember, you're not playing in this part anymore, but that because you're taking away the risk. So this is an income-producing deal only, but it's a 12% in Manhattan, New York, and you basically have it secured against the property with a partner that's got extensive experience, So I just want to kind of give people a context of what we talk. And these are real life examples now. Like I didn't want to, someone phoned me yesterday and we had a chat and we were like, you know, we can talk about private equity until the cows come home, or we can talk about actual deals, like, because then it's like literally people can learn from actual deals, you know? So that was the one. Now we're talking diversification. And so I tell you what, one was getting a little time machine and an airplane all at the same time. And we're just going to fly across the world, straight over to another continent, another currency, another partner, another asset class, by the way, because that one is effectively a debt deal. Yes, it's in property, but it's a debt deal in property. And now we're going to fly across the world to Germany, which, by the way, is the #1 economy in Europe. And we're going to look at a euro deal, and it's actually an equity deal in terms of that process. So if I come here, so let's do the same process now with this deal. Because I'm trying to give people a concept of from the comfort of their couch, they can get access to partners, they can get access to information, they can invest, and they don't have to get on an airplane.
Yes, they don't have to get on an airplane, and they don't have to visit small towns in Germany. So just to give some context on Germany and why the opportunity is a genuine diversifier, Scott, because you know, United States, Manhattan, that is the center of the universe, at least according to New Yorkers, that, you know, and a lot of people, that would be the center of the universe. In Germany, a big chunk of the economy is run out of towns that you and I are unlikely to visit or be able to find on the map necessarily without some kind of help. So I mean, the examples are Volkswagen's based in a town called Wolfsburg. This particular town, Wuppertal, is home to a couple of industrial brands like Vorwerk and suppliers into the motor industry. It's not far from Düsseldorf, but it is a secondary town, but with a very strong industrial base. So just to give a sense, this kind of opportunity is fundamentally different and is a genuine diversifier. And in Callio, this would be the third deal that we've done with the same sponsor. The sponsor, interestingly, was also introduced indirectly to me through people that I knew, and several people that I know had invested with him previously, and very successfully. It's managed by somebody called Peter Katz. Peter used to run the Redefine portfolio in Europe. And he then went on his own and uses private money and has a very similar mindset to us, which is quite important. He also raises funding, does a kind of an equity raise for each individual investment. And he wants to do it through people that he trusts and that he knows. So as I said, this is the third one we've done through Callio, but before that, I'd actually been exposed to several of his other transactions. And again, I'm used to his due diligence process. It's very rigorous. It involves technical elements, engineering studies of the buildings, for example, studies of existing leasing documentation, tax structuring, and so on. Those are extremely important in this kind of transaction. What's been offered here, though, and again, to Scott's point, is actually equity. So it is an equity exposure. It does have a reasonable yield. We expect a kind of mid to high single-digit yield initially. It has in-place debt, which is important. It has debt that was entered into and that will be assumed on transfer of the property when interest rates were still low and that were fixed at that time. So there's a massive benefit in that.
But just on that, sorry, Sauron. So what's really important here, people always say to me, oh, but Scott, you know, if I buy a house, I'm getting a mortgage, so I'm getting leverage and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And what you're saying here is so important because you are still getting leverage. The only difference is, even if you got $100 million and you fly to Germany right now, the chances of you getting debt are zero. Because you've got no relationships. And if you do get debt, you're going to get very expensive debt compared to partnering with a local person that's got a track record, got experience, has the debt in place, and like you said, has fixed it prior to the interest rates rising. So it sounds too good to be true. And it is if you're trying to do it on your own, unless you've got partners.
Yes. So these deals that these deals that we're talking about, Scott, are a little bit different from the deals that we normally do as a pure private equity house. Anyone who visits our website will see deals that we've done directly. These deals are deals that have been brought to us by people who are part of our community, and people that we've invested in personally, or who are people that have been invested in by like friends of ours and other members of the Kaleo community. And so these are a little bit different, but these are not possible to do from where we're sitting. And we have to rely on the individual partners and the networks that they've built. So for example, Peter has a whole team of people who do due diligence for him in Germany. He has a legal team that has worked with him on multiple transactions. He has an administrative team that is able to manage the investment structure for him. And those are things that if you and I were trying to build those from scratch or trying to do on our own, we simply would not be able to do without years of work and without having been in the market previously. And the benefit of somebody like Peter is he built up his infrastructure while working for Redefine and building their European portfolio years back. Then going on his own, he decided to focus on particular asset classes. He did a study. He said there's certain kinds of assets that seem to do well through the markets. Health assets, diversified assets, basic necessities, properties that deal with basic necessities. And then the German market in particular has certain resilient features to it, including the availability of debt from multiple funders. Again, but Scott's point stands. It's not possible for us to arrive there, drive out to Wuppertal, and to start doing deals. These deals come along quite rarely. This is the first deal we've seen for over a year from Peter. Just hasn't felt that the other deals that he's seen are good enough for his investment, for his investors.
Yeah,
so that's just
to put in perspective, so you know, the last deal you guys did with Peter, and you've done 3, so there's track record, yes. You've already said. But I remember there was a deal as COVID was happening, and one of your investors got spooked, and there was a gap for 700,000 euros. And I was like, pick me, I want to be in it. And we tried to go to our investor base, and like we just couldn't move quick enough, like, you know, because these things move quickly when it's a good deal. And again, I remember it being a DIY store, like
yes.
Anyway, and the long story short was it was a great income return. It had good capital growth. And you guys exited that in 18 months or something and got a 1.8 multiple, which basically means if you put $100 in, you got $180 back, which is like really good in less than 2 years. And it's, again, like it was for me, it was so frustrating. It was like, I was like, I want to be in the deal, but we just couldn't act fast enough, And one of the reasons we created the mastermind was that sometimes through the Wild Migrate platform, it takes too long to get stuff set up and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes with the mastermind, it's like, guys, it's a good deal. We need to move quickly. Are you in? Are you out? And sometimes that's how private equity works. You've got to be able to act fairly quickly. So when this deal came along and you were like, same operator, same person, I was like, if you don't let us get in this deal, it's going to be war. You know what I mean? So yeah, so really, really appreciate it. Peter, so let's go to the last one. So again, let's go back in our time machine now, back in our airplane, and we're going to fly right across the world back to Austin, Texas. And again, we're going to go into a different asset class now. It's still under the umbrella of private equity, but now you're actually investing in a company. And Peter's, I keep saying Peter now because you put Peter in my head. Someone's already mentioned this company backed. Just tell us a little bit about this, because I mean, these are literally three opportunities that we're looking to go live with you on, in the near future.
Yeah, so Scott, I want to stick with the theme that you raised, this partnership theme. So backed is the trading name of a company called Austin Business Finance. Austin Business Finance is founded by a South African called Zaan Myburg. Zaan is also founder of Cashflow Capital, which is a business here in South Africa, and is a working capital lender, mostly to restaurants, franchisees, and so on. And he moved to America, and we, as in Calio, started financing him pretty much from the beginning, just feeling that he had a good concept, he was a good operator, and he had a model for dealing with a kind of risk managed model for introducing himself into the US market. So we've been invested since 2019, and we invested in equity and permanent debt. And now that's all been taken up, but the business is a lending business. It does what are called merchant cash advances and lines of credit to medium-sized and small corporates in America. That is a massive market. United States is obviously a very dynamic economy. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of businesses that actually fall into scope for backed. And it's mostly working capital lending of less than 18 months and relatively high interest rates, because it's generally lightly secured or unsecured lending. And what's important is that over the years, we've been able to monitor the credit performance, and we've been able to monitor the management performance. And Glenn and I were there last week, and we sat with the management team. We were able to see Zaan has built a business which now has 56 employees, 46 based in Austin, 10 based in California. He sources deals through brokers and through a direct team. He's got a refined technology system for reviewing deals, assessing the credit risk, and a very small percentage of deals that are referred ever get funded. But there's massive scope in a business like this. Backed was actually rated by Inc. It was rated as one of the top 1,000 fastest growing businesses in the United States, ranked in the top 200 last year. So it's viewed and seen as a successful high growth business. What's been offered is debt, again, at 10% per annum. It's a very different profile, very diversified. That's US dollar debt. That's money that goes into the business as subordinated debt and then is used to finance the operations of the business, mostly lending, mostly directly going into building the book of Austin Business Finance.
Awesome.
There is a senior lender. And this helps us as well, because it's not just our due diligence. It's Fortress, one of the world's biggest lenders, is the senior lender to Austin Business Finance. And they have a line of $50 million, expandable to $100 million.
It's amazing. So, and you also, you guys put your money where your mouth is. As I understand it, yes. Debt and your equity, you've got $20 million in the.
Yes, $20 million. We have exposure to it. So, and I'm personally invested. Well, personally, it's actually my wife who's personally invested in this business. Glenn is personally invested in this business. So we definitely put our money where our mouth is, just generally. But with this opportunity in particular, it's been a very good investment for us. We've been able to see it grow from initiation, and we've built a very strong rapport with the management team. Obviously, like any other business, it has its challenges and it has its risks and so on. But the risk return profile, I think, is massively compelling for a debt instrument. To get 10% per annum and to have an investment term of 3 years. Given where interest rates are likely to go, I think I just think that's very compelling.
Yep, no, completely. Just one thing we forgot to mention here. This building in Germany is, so just to remind everyone, this one is a 12% US dollar income return per year. This one is a 6 to 6.5% euro income return, again paid quarterly, with a total return including capital growth of somewhere between 13 and 15% in terms of that process. And then this is a debt deal at 10% in US dollars. So you've got euros, you've got dollars, you've got debt, you've got equity, just to kind of give you an idea of different types. Selwyn, as always, it's a pleasure to chat. I love what you've done today just with everyone and sharing with everyone. I'd love anyone to give comments in the chat box as to what you thought. What we've done very consciously today is we've taken away a lot of the theory and we've talked practical about actual partners and actual deals so that people can understand it. Because again, I can waffle about the theory till the cows come home. I've got an entire course on it, Wealth Going Global and Asset Mastery. You can go and do all of the research. But in my opinion, there's nothing more powerful than learning while doing. And what you've helped us do today very consciously is go through 3 deals and hopefully for everyone, literally learn while doing. And even if you're watching in the recording and these deals are gone, because they will be gone. They're going in the next, one of them's closing in a month, the other one in a month, in 2 months. The point is, might be watching the recording, but it still gives you a concept of when deals come, how they work, particularly when we work with Kalia.
Scott, thank you so much. I love the opportunity to speak about my business. I love the opportunity to speak about my deals. And I'm also glad that I joined early to see what you said about partnerships, because that's so fundamental to the way we operate as well. Yeah, no, well, look, it's I fundamentally believe it's the collaboration and partnerships is the currency of the 21st century, and that is built on trust. And the reason I say that is that, let's say that the currency of the 21st century is trust, but how do you achieve trust? Well, it's collaboration and partnerships. It's the only way. It's the only way to do it. If you try to do it all yourself, it's literally the old school way of doing it, and then you're going to be stuck probably in your country, in your asset class, in your town, in your currency, and because it's virtually impossible to go internationally without collaboration and partnerships and to truly diversify. But there's lots of brilliant comments coming through, Selwyn. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
and
have an awesome day, dude.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
So, what did you all think? Just as a matter of interest. Huh?
Their voice cloud, and this one knows this one from this one knows.
Like, well, that's what I tried to say. Like,
it's like getting into the voice club.
You can fight the club. You can fight the club or join it. Basically, it's like literally that simple. Like,
It was great. It was interesting to watch how they knew each other and connected on this one, what was doing, this one they knew each other from there.
So, just before I pivot on, you know, in the resources. Hang on, I need to share my screen. So in the resources, there are equal recordings with partners. Just sharing with you anyway. But with Judd Dunning, so he's the gentleman I mentioned, we've done 3 industrial buildings with him. What is my laptop doing? And then you can see it there. Bruce Saunders, I don't know, I have to sort out that little wheel. Let me just see if it fixes itself quickly.
Stop saying it needs beer.
Yeah. But anyway, just while I just want to see if it fixes itself, because it'd be better than me restarting my machine. But in simple terms, Judd is the gentleman I told you about that does industrial property. Bruce does multifamily. Just by the way, does anyone know how many properties Old Mutual manages? Residential properties. Residential, yeah. Thousands, yes, but does anyone know the number?
I know they build for stock.
Yeah. So they build to rent, basically. Yeah.
A lot of it is for what they refer rental stock. And the opportunity, I mean, you know, Jeanette here was talking to me about an opportunity that she wants to get into. Old Mutual is one of those clients that if you have them on your books, you're on your way.
So, I agree with you, Abdul. Can anyone give me the number as to how many units they manage? So
77.
77. Is it? I don't know.
He's guessing.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly. A friend of mine is in the space, and I asked him, and he said 18,000 units. Okay. Bruce Sanders started a business, so he's been in the property industry since 1997. He's a chartered accountant, South African chartered accountant by background. He started a business 18 months ago in America. How many units do you think he's managing 18 months later? Just take a guess.
100,000.
17,000.
In 1 year.
Him and his partner are managing similar to Old Mutual, what they've achieved in however many years. They're doing, that's the size and scale of America. So the reason I'm telling you that story is that he is one of the videos that you can literally watch there. And as I said to you, he's gone on his own 18 months ago. So they're raising $46 million at the moment. It's just, the world's just at another level when you start to play at this. And so they're going through compliance and stuff. And as and when they're ready, I was in Atlanta 3 weeks ago, and when they're ready, he's going to give me a shot. Okay, Shane, I just want to check you can see everything.
Shane's already got his beer.
Yeah, don't joke. Can everyone just tell me quickly if you're online? Can you just check if you can hear and see us? Is it like we lost everyone online?
Hey Scott, I can see you and I can see Salman on your screen.
Okay, thanks, Shane. Cool. Okay, so that's Judd and that's Bruce. They're both there. They're both about 45 minutes long, but if you want to go into detail, they're there in terms of the partner. So I just want to kind of wrap up a little bit in terms of Module 4. Is that cool? In terms of what we went through. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So to the mom and pop investors, good luck. Hopefully, you see the problem, you know what I've done, and I know you're going to hate me for this, but after you've been through this experience, you can't go back. It's like you've been invited down this little alleyway, and you're like, oh my word, there's like another whole world out here, and everything that people have been teaching me is wrong. So I'm going to jump through a few slides.